Good evening, good afternoon in some parts of the world, good morning in others, and good day and good night to you all. Here from us to you on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, your favorite NFL speaking podcast that has been sweeping the YouTube audio boards for quite a while now. Also, technically video. We're a multi-pronged show, but if you just want to have some white noise in the background while you're doing random chores, I feel like we're a very white noise friendly podcast. You come to the place. Introducing the proceedings, of course, per usual, myself, the Iceman, joined this time by one of my compatriots of chaos, the trifecta, the troublesome trifecta that we normally are, is not able to be today because the games master and also the clubhouse leader, as we will get to later in the episode, he had some time off to take, and also we're following show traditions as we tend to do here on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Because if there is one thing that we will randomly do, it's follow tradition. We're like that, and one of the men who is a staunch tradition follower here on the program is the Podfather himself, Podfather Rick. Rick, how are we doing?
I'm doing laundry, actually, as well. So you talk about white noise. I'm currently doing some laundry while we're producing the show for the live folks at home. So I think we need to make a rule that if you are the clubhouse leader in our pick challenge, then you cannot miss an episode, because then you're docked like 4 points or something like that, just to make it interesting. Because Right now, he's running away with this worse than Martin Keimer in the 20 whatever it was U.S. Open, when he had the lead in the first round and then just didn't ever lose it. It was boring. Let's get them that way. So
it would help the two of us out, to say the very least, when it comes to
very much so.
The pick challenge. We'll get to the pick challenge later on in the episode, ladies and gentlemen. We'll update a bit later than we normally do when one of us is missing out, but we have the current standings to update you on. We have our picks that we've made this week. And we have plenty to talk about here because, of course, as you all know, we're going to have a all gas, no breaks episode. And as you can tell by the fun title, it is the return this season for the yearly edition of the NFL Head Coach Hot Seat-O-Meter, this time in the year 2025. But before we get into all that, we have some things to discuss. And one of those things, to start off, we guys know the tagline of this program. If you've been to the YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe, by the way. Fun, football, and chaos. Let's start with some fun. Leading into the football. Podfather, it's up to you. Dad joke of the week.
So, it's a very weird time in the world right now, as I'm sure you know.
Ain't that the truth?
A lot of weird things are going on. And a lot of things that are going on also involve protesting. We've seen a lot of protests all over the world. But I do got to say, Jurg, I happened to pass by a protest the other day while I was on my way to work. And it had to be the weirdest protest I've ever seen. So I don't know if you know how these things go. Obviously, you have like a leader who's in the protest, who's calling for I guess the unions or the companies to like listen to the demands.
Right.
So all of a sudden, I see the guy raise the bullhorn to his mouth, and he turns on and he says, "What do we want?" And the crew says, "Race car noises. When do we want them?" Meow. Very strange. Very, very strange.
Now I gotta ask you, which kind of engine did their meow remind you of? You talking V10, V12, V8? What are we thinking?
Oh no, not V8. No one ever gets a V8 confused with a V12, or because then you're in the wrong aisle at a grocery store if you catch that joke as well. It was definitely a V12. Yeah, definitely V12s.
Fantastic, to say the very least. That we had a double zinger right there.
We did. Yes, we did.
For it, so double zinger on the Podfather's dad joke of the week, ladies and gentlemen. See, we give you all value on this program. You sign up for one dad joke, you got two right there.
And a third one as my tagline, because obviously with the head coach hot seat.
So I can't fire back before? No, you may not. Not this time, Rick. Not this time. I've
been trying for years, man,
there was a brief spell like 2-3 years ago where you had a shot.
I did. I felt so good that time around, and now it's just become the thing. But a little teaser for the folks in the back for later on, or those who have somehow sped up ahead an hour in our timeline and know what's coming up next. So.
Indeed. So there's the dad joke. Let's get on to talking some NFL. But before we get to the hot seat-o-meter, before we get to all gas, no breaks, we have some things to discuss. I did make note of this last week, Rick. Continuity is key here on the program. sometimes. And one of the things that we did bring up in the last episode is the fact that the NFL trade deadline is rapidly approaching. It is in the first week of November. I believe I said it was November 6th.
Mm-hmm. I believe it is the 4th, I want to say, the Wednesday. I could be wrong with that.
But ultimately, the NFL trade deadline is next week. So we're going to start seeing teams make a couple trades here. There is believed to be some hype in some way, shape, or form that there could be some modicum of interesting trades that are happening. And I mean, time will tell on that part. We'll have next week's episode to either do one last mini preview or react, depending on when we get to record, or if we do a special immediate post-trade deadline reaction kind of beat, if time permits, for us next week. But Rick, the trades have begun.
Yes, they have.
So far, over the last 24 to 48 hours, or 72 hours, depending on when you're listening to this, or even more, ultimately. But NFL trades have begun to be made. A couple teams have started to make some moves. And Rick, a lot of these trades have been focused on the defensive side of things so far. We're going to start real quick with I'd say at least two of these are more recent, and also like the teams that have made individual trades, because one team has made a couple deals so far here that we'll get to in a moment. Let's talk about some teams here, Rick, that made kind of. I feel like this is a case where it's like on the timeline these happened, like both players must have been in conversation for each team. It was just all about compensation and how things got figured out at the end of the day. But a couple defensive backs get moved around the league as some contenders in the NFC make trades to bolster their secondaries. The Los Angeles Rams acquired Roger McCreary from the Tennessee Titans. McCreary and a conditional 6th-round pick in the 2026 draft were traded to the Rams in exchange for a conditional 5th-round pick, I believe, of the same draft. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, within a very close time frame of this, they made a trade as well. They traded for Michael Carter II from the Jets. So this is the defensive back, Michael Carter. They got him and a 2027 7th-round pick from New York in exchange for John Mechie III is now going to be suiting up for the Jets, and a 2027 6th-round pick is going back the other way to New York. So clearly, Rick, there's one thing that I think is very much going to be in a focus here. It's going to be the secondary, obviously, and it's not a surprise because we know how important the secondary is in football. It's kind of something that can come back to bite you ultimately. And you want a good secondary, you want a deep secondary is the thing. And I think clearly for these two teams that already, I think especially in the case of the Eagles, you have two young studs there in Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, who have been great so far in their sophomore years, and they just all around great defense with the Rams. That the front seven really makes that secondary's life easier. Just adding more talent in both cases. Eagles are already relatively young in that secondary, considering it's a couple second-year guys, but a young-ish player, and Michael Carter, the second going to them, and a Roger McCreary, who's a pretty young player. I don't even think he has reached the end of his rookie contract, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's a 4th-year player.
Yeah, 4th-year player. So he's playing for something, the former second-round pick. So what do we make of these two guys here going to each other? These two teams, I should specify, the Rams and the Eagles, both making trades for secondary players here. And again, I think this is probably a case of the little alternate multiverse here for us. Like, it very easily could have gone another way. Of even McCreary could have gone to the Eagles, and why am I blanking on the name?
Carter
Yes,
Rams.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Carter could have even gone to the Rams, but it's just a matter of compensation and what the other teams wanted at the end of the day. So what do we make of the trades that went down?
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to at the end of it too, is that the Titans may have been able to hold out for a week further, because I feel like McCreary would definitely have been a bigger target. I'll say they got the better end of the deal, because if you were to look at their projections for next year, getting rid of McCreary means that they won't have a big hit on their cap space, and they have $113 million in free cap to use in the offseason to get some big players. So they're not in contention. They're going to move a piece who is going to be up for a new contract anyways. It makes sense for them on that side. The Rams getting him is interesting, because if I'm LA, I don't necessarily know if I would have gone for McCreary, because the way that Sean McVay's defense runs, where are you going to slot him? That's the real question mark that you have. They have a really good nickelback already in Quentin Lake. So, and that's really how their defense works. You're not sure how, he could play. He might take some snaps away from guys like Emmanuel Forbes or Kobe Durant, but he might also be a guy who slide in those safety role. It's definitely flexibility, but I don't know if it was the move for them to make. Again, it might be the first domino in a long line of dominoes for them. But the way I see it, it was a good move on both sides. Like I said, the compensation, I think if Tennessee held out for a little bit longer, they might have been able to get a higher draft pick than a 6th-rounder. But beggars can't be choosers in this league. Obviously, if that offer wasn't there again, and then you're saddled with McCreary, he's a good player, but to pay him would be a bit of a question mark there. The Eagles getting Michael Carter is classic Howie Roseman, because you're right about Mitchell and DeJean being your top 2, but the thing is that there's nobody really behind them at number 3. Adoree Jackson is old. He's not really doing it for them this year. Keely Ringo hasn't been the star that we've thought that he was going to be, but again, when you draft Georgia players, you're not going to get hits every single time out.
Yeah, I was going to say you're bound to miss on one of them. And also, by the way, Adoree Jackson, real quick, also former Tennessee Titan as well.
Exactly, yeah.
As well as a New York Giant. So,
and then there was Jacorian Bennett, who they took a flyer on as a free agent, but he's been on IR all season basically, so they've done nothing for them. So Carter gives them a nice corner 3, which is good. You can put him in the slot, or you can move one of these younger guys. You can move DeJean maybe to the outside now. He can cover some of the bigger targets. If you have Mitchell as your 1, DeJean can really help out against your 2 there. And Carter's locked up for a couple of years. I think his contract is out in 2027. So it gives them some flexibility to really continue to shore up that secondary. And again, you're right. Mitchell and DeJean are both so young that they're playing on rookie deals and they're already your top 2 guys. It just shows how well the Eagles are built there. And again, what it does for Philadelphia is it shores up a need. You might not keep Carter long term. He is owed, I think, almost close to $11 million, but at the same time, having him is better than not. And on the Jets side of things, look, it just you get a receiver for a room that is bereft of talent because Garrett Wilson's been hurt, and you don't talk about old. Alan Lazard is still somehow walking, even though he's probably it should be the Shady Shoals retirement home with Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy at this rate. Yeah. And Josh Reynolds is on IR. The Tyler Johnson, who I thought had a contract with the Heat at one point in his career, but that would be a different Tyler Johnson. He's there. And then you have that other guy, Smith, Arian Smith, I think his name is. So you bring in a guy who had a lot of promise in college, came out. Obviously, there was all the health concerns that he had. He was a 2nd-round pick by Houston in 22. You give him depth. You try and see if maybe he can snap on, and hopefully maybe get some playing time out of him because he is a good player. He is a good kid. Again, it was a need the Eagles needed, and it was also a need the Jets needed, just some wide receiver depth for Justin Fields or Brady Cook, depending on how you look at the rest of their season. But yeah, I don't hate either trade. I think that they both work. Like I said, I think there's more questions long term on the Eagles side and short term on the Rams side with the additions that they have, just because of do you hang on to these guys, and if you do, where do you put them after the fact?
Yeah, I think that sums it up perfectly. And, I'm really not surprised because these are the kinds of moves that you make for a team like the Eagles, you make for a team like the Rams in this juncture, where you don't need to necessarily worry in regards to, I think especially the Eagles, like you just mentioned, because it's 2 young players in that secondary. You can make a trade like this. You can spend for a guy that has a little bit of a cap on him if you believe that once you slot him in, he's going to work for you. I think this is a case where Michael Carter, in what you were talking about, I think he does fit perfectly there because he is the kind of guy that you can take this, I don't even call it a risk on. Like you can, if you believe the tape shows that he can be that perfect complement to Mitchell and DeJean and work well in the packages you run. It's great, especially for a team like the Eagles and Rams, so similar where the front 7 does so much work. Granted, maybe the front 7 for the Eagles hasn't been performing at the same level like they have in years past, maybe especially like last year, but there's still such a formidable front 7 that the secondary, they can afford to maybe not play perfect here and there. Now you're adding a guy who's just going to help those 2 young corners, just help give them a little bit more veteran support. So ultimately, a great move there by Philly. And again, like relatively low cost as well. Like getting rid of a John Mechie, who I hope he gets more of a role in New York somehow, but just so far as only caught a seldom amount, like a decent amount of catches, but nothing crazy throughout the couple seasons of his career so far. So you have that in his case. And then, kind of like you said, it's one of those deals where I think for the Rams, sometimes it's a case where does the team maybe know or think that they know better than what we may have. McCreary, I think he's just been solid, but he's also been on a bad Tennessee team. I think we see in other sports, especially, another sport that the two of us love to watch in hockey, like just sometimes a guy who's on a really bad team, you don't know how good or bad he can really be until you finally put him on a good team. So this could end up being the case. McCreary, he's done his job so far as one of the starters in Tennessee, now gets to go to the Rams, play a more significant role on a team that's actually really playing for something. Like you said, the Titans get something out of this. If you were not sold on giving him a contract extension, right, then why not just get an asset back, and you can put that money into addressing the secondary if you want to next year, or maybe addressing receiving help and offensive line help in free agency. And then in the draft, you can literally pick another corner in the draft, maybe in the first round, maybe in the probably not the first round. You're going to have a top 2, top 3 pick, maybe in the second round, right? So ultimately kind of a win-win on all sides. And yeah, and I can't really complain too much. I mean, the Jets, we're not surprised that they ended up trading someone, I don't think.
I mean, I would have loved to have had Justin Stoss, but I think at this point he's just riding on cloud 9 after the win last week, so he's fine. And to round out your discussion and round out your point, this is a Rams move because it is like Sean McVay to try and be the smartest guy in the room, and everyone's like, "What's the plan?" He's like, "I know what I'm doing, you idiots."
Yeah,
that's Sean McVay for you.
Yeah, he is very much in like the Rams and Niners are both similar in this extent to where it's like they'll make these low key moves, right? Yep. That on the surface it's like, oh, this doesn't seem like too much, but ultimately this could end up assisting the team. And case in point, the Niners also got a little bit involved here, and they were involved with a team that made a couple of moves this past week, Rick, because the New England Patriots find themselves to be busy bees here. Leading up to the deadline, but not in the way we thought. And I got to give the Patriots credit here as we're going to go into deep in real in-depth detail here in a moment. But they ended up trading 2 pieces on their defense away. They trade Keon White, a guy, again, another former second-round pick, edge rushing guy, who's been part of the front 4, front 7 for that team for a little bit now. They end up sending him to San Francisco. San Francisco didn't really need to do too much. It was White in a conditional 7th-round pick in 2026 going to San Fran in exchange for a 6th-round pick in the same draft coming back. So literally just another lower pick round swap. But the bigger move that the Patriots made here was trading away Kyle Duggar, Rick, a guy who was one of the last notable picks that actually kind of did something in the Belichick era, right? The 2nd-round pick. Again, all these former 2nd-round picks getting moved, huh?
No.
The former 2nd-round pick in the 2020 draft on a contract extension that he signed just a little over a year and a half ago for himself. He was one of those guys that ended up getting a transition tag before ultimately signing a contract extension back in the spring of 2024, but was on the team last season, had a relatively solid season, and then, well, maybe some would disagree, and then this season has played so far, and they're like, you know what? We can cut ties. And the Patriots ended up trading him and 2026 7th-round pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for a 6th-round pick. So, Rick, what do we make of the Patriots kind of really just looking at the roster and be like, you know what? And this is why I'm saying I like what they did, because they're in a really good spot right now. They're at the top of their division. They're stacking up some wins here. They have a young quarterback who looks like he's really ascending right now in year 2. More on that in a little bit. And a year 1 with a head coach that looks like it's going well. But I got to give them props for not having delusions of grandeur and still looking at this roster and being like, you know what, there's some excess that we could trade here, get some minor picks, and they could try to work some magic here with some late round picks in future drafts here, and getting rid of a Keon White, who, again, similar case to what some of the other guys, it's like if you weren't going to give him a contract extension or keep him, why not get something of some value back? And then Kyle Duggar, a guy who was on the books for a couple more seasons. Now you trade that contract away for another team to handle. So I personally like the mindset behind the Patriots' moves here. I think they are not deluding themselves into falling in love with this season. I think they're trying to take more of a long-term approach with this. I think these are actually – Keon White is a no issue, but I think Duggar is a relatively smart, cap effective, and also they must really believe that he wasn't making as much of an impact as maybe some people thought. So what do you make of the move from – of course, the Patriots end, but also looking at the teams that make this acquisition? San Fran getting just a depth guy in Keon White, and the Steelers, got to believe they're adding this to be a starter in their secondary now going forward.
So let's take the Steelers move first, because I'm 50-50 on these moves, and I'll tell you why when I get to the Keon White move. It was clear from the off that Mike Vrabel had no plans for Kyle Duggar. Absolutely clear. He was passed up for, Jalen Hawkins, and then when Hawkins was out, that's when Duggar got in. For a guy who's been a Patriot for years, for Vrabel to come in and basically not want anything to do with him, I mean, the bottom line is that he was going to get cut at the end of the year. So to make the move now, it makes a lot of sense too on both sides. Like I said, he wasn't really a factor in the plans that were there. And for Pittsburgh, Deshaun Elliott went down with an injury on Sunday night against the Packers. And they have a lot of other safeties they could have used. But if you watch Chuck Clark play on Sunday night, that guy ain't the answer. You let Kraft macaroni and cheese go 60 yards on a pass play. Like, come on, dude. Jabril Peppers, who tried to be Ohtani before Ohtani was a thing, and it just didn't work out at all. And then Juan Thornhill's the deep safety. So they needed some other depth because, again, even with the loss, Pittsburgh is still atop that division, which is saying something, because that means the AFC North is just a total mishigas. My Jewish and theater friends will know what that means. But I like the move. I like the move on both sides. It's gonna release some cap strength for New England there, and I think you're right. That'll definitely give them some idea of going forward. But the Keon White move, to me, here's my thing with it. You need depth on the D line. When you've got guys who are having great seasons there. Harold Landry's having a phenomenal year. Milton Williams is doing really well after a Super Bowl performance. Should have been MVP, but salt in the wound. That's a spot where I think you want to have some depth pieces, because all it takes is one little nick to Calabon Chase on his knee, or one little tear in Christian Barmore's tricep, and now you wish you had Keon White back. So that's the move to me that I think is a little questionable. I get it. He didn't have any playing time. He wasn't really in the rotation, but sometimes you need to have guys on the roster who are just there because they need to be there. Like, they need to be on scout teams and everything like that, and I get that. Similarly, though, if I will say one thing for the Patriots that I do like about, like I said, both these trades, it's that they struck while the iron was hot, because they saw how the league was, and they saw how a couple of teams had games this week where main pieces went out due to injury. And then they basically said to those teams, here's a guy, let's talk. So, because obviously the Niners need defensive line help, because Nick Bosa's been out, and that's out all year. And then Bryce Huff just went down this past week. He might miss this week with a hamstring injury. So, while Keon White's not a long-term solution there, again, it helps out San Francisco. And White's under contract next year for $1.8 million. That's not a big hit for John Lynch's crew. They can still make some other moves there. So, like I said, my reservations aside with the Keon White move, I think New England did a smart thing, kind of striking while the iron was hot. And both Pittsburgh and San Francisco did what they needed to do to shore up spots on their defense that they were going to be short on because of injuries. But we'll see. We'll see if those two players can add some spark and do interesting division races on both sides. And again, for New England, you add more draft capital, and then I don't think they're done. I think they're going to make some more moves here and there. I think these were little cobblestone moves for them to kind of go for a bigger stuff next week before the deadline really finishes up.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what could be on their mind, because we're talking about them kind of selling off and not buying in, but maybe they do find a trade here where it may not seem like too much on paper, but it could be the right kind of deal for them. Maybe there's a receiver out there that they have their eye on that that extra money moving off in future years could be critical in paying the guy a 10, 12, $15 million contract AAV. And now that's easier to do because you don't have Duggar's AAV on there as well. And I definitely would see what you're saying about the Keon White part. I think ultimately what Mike Vrabel, kind of similar thing happened with White, like with Duggar, right? Like just turned him into kind of a rotational guy, wasn't getting in as much, and he just had his other guys that he ultimately liked and favored more, and just ends up trading. And for San Fran, like this is a win-win, like you said. Like if White has one more year on 1.8 million, he should be getting plenty of playing time here going forward for San Francisco. We'll have the opportunity to at least get the playing time. And if he starts to get a couple sacks back in, because he had, I think, 4 or 5 last year, but he hasn't registered one this season. He gets a couple sacks under his belt, right? A couple sacks under his belt right now in the regular season. And then when next season comes back, when a more healthy San Francisco 49ers defense is there, knock on wood, if you're a San Francisco fan, then this kid could be next to a Nick Bosa. He could be in the same defense with a healthy Fred Warner. He could be next to guys that might make it easier. Keon White could be one of those comes out of nowhere. Like none of us literally expected this, and it'll be him benefiting from the fact that he's going to be playing next to two of the respective two of the respective top defensive players at their respective positions. So this could end up being like a year from now, big victory for him, all intents and purposes. So we'll see on that end. But those were the small trades that we kind of saw so far from this past week. And we'll see where it goes going forward. Of course, we still have about a week or so left. And like you said, I think, maybe we might get one more before the next slate of games really gets going. Maybe we might get one in between the Thursday night game occurring and then the weekend. But I think we're definitely going to see a flurry of moves occurring post-Sunday, of course, and even, obviously on the day of Monday Night Football, or if not even the day or so after. Teams are going to get active here, we assume, going forward. And last week, and I think this week, or I think really more the last 3 weeks are going to be the key sets of, okay, what do we need? What do we have? What can we get rid of? And what the hell's going on? Which a lot of teams kind of have to ask that part at times in their season. So that's how it goes. So those were the respective trades. Plenty more to be talked about, most likely once we get the next episode. And maybe once again, we might do a fun little podcast post the deadline, depending on how schedules work out. Or we end up just doing one the day of after the deadline, and we actually get to talk about and react in the same day. So we'll see about that.
Is there any truth to our rumors, by the way, that we're considering trading away Justin for Bars full time?
I don't know where those rumors came from. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
I think Shams or somebody else like that might have said something about that. Some Twitter sphere or something like that. So.
That may have been Shams spelled with like a C at the start.
It was Shams. She was Chums.
Yeah,
Chum Bucket.
Yes, the Chum Bucket Reports Twitter account putting fake news out there. Justin's not going anywhere.
Fake news.
And Bars has this thing coming up called Wedding. So he might be a little bit busy.
Yeah, that's kind of inescapable. Boy.
Kind of. Yeah, you would know.
Yeah, that's true.
So that being said, from the small trades that have happened, ladies and gentlemen, from maybe some speculating, let's speculate and react a little bit more with this week's edition, of course, of the beautiful All Gas, No Breaks. Of course, we are going to, as we've done the last couple of weeks, one of us has been selected by the decision makers and power brokers here at the Sports Agents of Chaos organization to give a set of takes based off of predominantly this past week in the NFL season, but a couple other ones, a couple weeks in the past, couple takes in the past could be influencing these. And by process of elimination, the Podfather went last week. Justin isn't here this week. So this is where I step in for my quick set of All Gas, No Breaks, and we're going to kind of fire through these. I feel like my last set was a little bit better, at least just in my personal opinion. I think I got some interesting ones here to say the very least. I think I'm going to start off hot here on this first one because this is literally piggybacking off a team that we just talked about, Rick, a team that we just spoke because they made a trade and what their season outlook could be like. And despite the fact that, they definitely had a poor and not favorable result occur this past week. And while they are still in a pretty good position right now, a lot of things can unfold, especially with a couple teams on the horizon that they have to go up against. So, Rick, my first take for this week's edition of All Gas, No Breaks is that the Pittsburgh Steelers will miss the postseason if the defense was playing at a higher level right now. If this is like the Steelers defense we've seen in the past, or if they were even playing like a team like the Texans right now, the stout defense that the Texans have consistently had for most of the season so far, I would have a lot more faith in the Steelers. But this defense has been way too Swiss cheese on a number of occasions, even though they won that week 1 game against the Jets. I think that was a sign and precursor of things to come. They've allowed teams to just really get up against them, to surprise them, to, in certain cases to do just enough, or in the case of that Bengals game, to just completely break on multiple occasions against a team that they should have handily defeated and extended their division lead. They may still have a division lead right now, but I don't think it's safe because of the defense playing inconsistently. And I think we're going to be due. He's been decent this season. I have to give him credit, but I think we're going to be due for a pretty bad Aaron Rodgers game or two coming up here in what is, we all believe is going to be his last season. So I just don't have a lot of faith and belief in the Steelers team right now. I picked them before the season, so technically per my predictions, like, of course that sticks, but I don't have a lot of faith. If I'm a Steelers fan, I don't have a lot of faith in this team right now. They're showing a lot of things that could make me go against them. So my first take, Steelers will miss the postseason.
My gun to my head, tongue-in-cheek, poor me, poor Justin, AFC Super Bowl contender pick here, Pittsburgh Steelers. So the only thing that I can say is that I think the Steelers have the worst schedule remaining of the three AFC North teams. But Cincinnati is not much better. Baltimore is the team that has an easier time if they can get Lamar Jackson back on solid footing here. But I don't necessarily know if I believe that Pittsburgh is going to miss the postseason. Tepidly, I'm gonna pump the brakes and hope there's no brake lines cut on this one. If there are, it definitely is because Shailene Woodley cut them just because we said Aaron Rodgers so many times. But when I look at the wild card setting that's there, Buffalo's not going to be a wild card team. I feel like they're going to find a way to get back into the lead in the AFC East division, which would mean New England would fall into the wild card spot. And while they're good, I feel like we're kind of getting towards that like slumpy part for them when, they've got maybe 3 or 4 tough games remaining on their schedule. Including another game against the Bills, which was going to be a revenge game for Buffalo. So I feel like they may stumble here or there. And then you look at the other teams that are, ahead of the second place team in the AFC South, or AFC North rather. You've got the Chargers and the Chiefs. I think one of those teams will probably supplant Denver. I could be wrong, but I don't think they'll be wild card teams. Jacksonville, I'm waiting for them to drop out a little bit because, again, it's not sustainable the way they're playing football. And Houston's questionable at best. So I think that Pittsburgh's got enough talent on offense and on defense to make things, work for them to get them back into the postseason. And listen, if all else fails, they got one of the most lethal kickers in the game, of Chris Boswell, who can really set things up for failure. So I say pump the brakes on this one only because I feel like they might not win the division, but I think they have enough pieces to outlast some of these other teams that are doing well right now, but who may fall off towards the end based upon quarterback play or based upon bad results going their way. So I feel like they can still be, if not a division winner, they'll be a likely 6 or 7 seed. They'll probably just get in. So let me put the brakes on it.
Interesting. Well, we will see. Is noteworthy if they weren't leading the division right now, they would be out of the postseason. So that's also part of it for me to where, like even if I don't think the Broncos are going to hold on, a 6-2 start's really good. And to expect the Steelers to, I think they have to comfortably surpass them because I want to say from winning games right now, I think the Broncos probably have an edge right now against the Steelers in terms of some of the tiebreakers that could have come into effect. So it's tough times to say the very least for the Steelers.
The only thing for Denver, though, too, 8 games in, they've only played one divisional game. They lost it. They still have games in their division to go because they have a worse conference record currently than Pittsburgh does. Pittsburgh's 3-1 in conference, Denver's 3-2. So if it comes down to tiebreakers right now, in that case, Pittsburgh does have a bit of an advantage.
But those 2 extra wins right now are helping them to say the very least. Because Denver really doing good against the NFC, it seems. So there's that. If they'll make it that far. But all right, that was my first take for this one. Next take, we're very much staying firmly entrenched with the AFC North because at this point, Lamar Jackson coming back, like you said, the Ravens got a massive win without him, which they needed. They're going to have to continue this streak. The other team that could have been in contention got a massive loss, thus hurting and screwing me over in the pick challenge. Thanks, Cincinnati. And, this is going to be a team that's going to be in conversations at this trade deadline, Rick, but not for the reasons we think. They had to rework a deal this past offseason. They were just barely able to get it. And it will not surprise me if ownership continues to be petty and just be like, you know what? Don't want to deal with this. Don't want to keep him. Rick, all gas, no brakes. The Bengals will trade Trey Hendrickson at, by context clues, of course, I mean they're going to trade him here by the trade deadline. This is a case where I just don't see him staying in Cincy long term. I think they were so headstrong on the fact that they didn't want to the thing is that the primary point, I think this was lost in the discussion of the offseason, that the primary point was just to rework his deal just for this season, to give him a bit of a pay bump. Now the thing is that with that, they were arguing against him just for 1 year when he'd already done so much. If he doesn't continue statistically now this season, they're definitely not going to want to pay him, and that would just be another heated negotiation. I think it could get messy if they tried to use the tag on him or anything. I think the tag would be pretty expensive for just 1 year as well, considering what some pass rushers have gotten here. So I think, ultimately speaking, Bengals ownership is going to make the call from up above, and there's only so much the GM can do, right, if they want to end up keeping their job. So I think it's going to end up being the case. The Bengals are going to end up trading Trey Hendrickson here coming up at the deadline.
So while I am all gas on this one with you, I do have two thoughts in my head that give me a little bit of pause. One, I think teams are wary of Trey Hendrickson's hip injury, and they know that may be a factor, especially the way that he kind of limped out of the Jets game. By the way, you shouldn't take Justin's feet. Never pick a game with the Jets involved. Come on, you're better than that.
I think that was the first time they screwed me over on either way in a while.
Possible,
I had a pretty good run,
but it was bound to happen. But I think the hip injury is a little questionable there for him. And the other thing too is that you said, Bengals ownership's going to be petty and trade him if they're working the deal. No, sir. Bengals ownership will be petty and keep him through the trade deadline to make him sit through the deal they reworked, just to really be like, hey, we got you this money, even though it wasn't the money you wanted, but we got you money. But no, I think a big factor is going to be how this weekend goes out. Zach Taylor's already saying that Joe Flacco's 50-50 to play against the Bears. And if you have Jake Browning against Caleb Williams, good freaking luck.
All right.
So I can see this game being the swan song for Trey Hendrickson. They got to find a suitor eventually. And it is more credence to the fact that this Bengals team, for whatever reason, doesn't like defensive players. The only popular one they ever had was Icky Woods, and that was for a dance that he did back in the 80s. That's it. So, yeah, all gas. All gas on that one, for sure.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate way for the saga to end for the Bengals in a season that they were hoping, and that it really looked like there could have been some potential this season, but everything just going off the rails so early. And not even for losing early season games. This team was actually winning in week 1 and 2, or looking like they could compete, and just falls off. Stank shame. Well, some people might expect this team, a certain team, to fall off here in the coming weeks, Rick. It doesn't necessarily mean this quarterback will fall off. Now, I think he may have a tough game here or there, but he's already shown us so much. He can make tough throws. He can make plays. He can read the field at a pretty high level as well. He's an athletic freak of nature, and he's been smart with the football as well.
Geno Smith Pro Bowl, all gas.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah, now, in all seriousness, I have Drake May will firmly be a top 10 quarterback in the league come season's end. Now, he just has to be number 10. He just has to be number 10. Yeah. Look, I think it's no secret that it was very interesting to see what the Drake May experiment was going to look like coming into this year. I think we're all interested. I think it's very safe to say that it's looking pretty good. And there are Dolphins and Jets fans upset right now. And there are Bills fans that are genuinely seething at the fact that the Patriots are looking like they could take this division back after just a couple years of the Bills running the roost. Look, there's a couple different ways to look at this when it comes to Drake May. What do you personally view as top 10 quarterback? What traits do you take? I think it's a very subjective thing. I think the simple thing for me, he's playing at an extremely high level right now. He has all the traits and the tools to be a top 10 caliber quarterback, and he is starting to consistently do this week in and week out. I think Drake May, I think next season, I don't think it'll be a discussion. I think midway through the 2026 season, I think it'll be far gone that he is a top 10 quarterback, but I'm willing to jump on this bandwagon right away. The dude is balling. The dude is playing well. He was taking hits in this past game against the Browns, but it didn't matter because he was making throw after throw as well. Myles Garrett got 5 sacks, and this team lost by double digits.
Yep.
And the Patriots running game, like, it's kind of been touch and go this season. Like, it hasn't been anything crazy. It hasn't been anything special. And Drake May, with the lack of a consistent rushing, maybe they'll get a running back here at the deadline to help out and actually have a balanced or consistent running game here going forward. But Drake May's balled this season, so I have him this come season's end. He will be firmly a top 10 quarterback. Now this means he could be number 10. So again, subjective. I think he already is just from a talent and traits and game perspective right now. He has the tools to do it, and he's actually doing it right now. So that's why I'm making this claim at this moment. So that's my way of looking at it.
All right, so let's take a temperature of the room then, just to walk along this pathway. Who's no particular order? Who else is in the top 10?
Well,
Josh Allen, I assume.
Well, my top 4. This is my definitive top 4. No one touches this top 4. Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Josh. That is the lock stamp. They will be the top 4 until they significantly decline or they retire.
That's even including the fact that Burrow hasn't really played much this season.
Yeah, I mean, we know the talent.
Okay. All right. So Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Herbert still top 10?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. All right. Baker?
Yes, this season, yes.
Okay. Stafford?
I'll give it to him this year.
Okay.
I'll give it to him this year.
Okay. That's 7 right now.
Yep.
Jordan Love? Fringe.
He's had some really tough games this season, man. It cannot be ignored. I think now. Here's the thing, Rick. Toyotathon is coming up.
Yes, it is.
And Jordan Love turns into a different man during the Toyotathon.
We do know that. Okay,
so right, I need to get this taken now because come the Toyotathon, this man is going to be back in the list.
Okay, so fringy there.
Yes,
Dak.
Again, fringe.
Fringe.
There are weeks where he is a top 8 quarterback. There are weeks where he looks like he's barely top 14.
Jalen Hurts.
He is, but Christ alive, the Eagles are annoying. But Jalen Hurts does deserve to be in.
So that's 8 then, typically. Yes. Daniel Jones.
Look, I love Daniel.
He's the biggest enigma right now. I would agree with you. Yeah.
He is anywhere between 9 to 11 or 12.
Okay. Goff.
I think he's right now. I mean, it could be. You have to say a few other names here, but I think Goff is the last definitive. He's in there, so he's, I guess, number 9, quote unquote.
Stroud.
No, it's been way too. I know part of it is the offensive line. I get that, but I think a lot of people would also agree he has not played at the level we would expect of him this season.
Bo Nix.
Big Bosef. He would be him and May are really kind of neck and neck in this one.
Sling and Sam Darnold. It's tough. The reason why
but this is why I made it to number 10 because number 10 it's a rotating cast and you can make whatever argument you want to make. If you want to go production, it's probably Darnold right now. If you want to go even more recent, that Bo Nix is probably there. If you want to go long term, you could say whatever you want. And this is why I think there are certain things trait wise, IQ wise, just pure it goes past just the play on the field. It's the mechanics of a guy, the way he's playing, the style, and just some of the throws he makes just makes it look so easy.
Of course. So this is part of that was we just kind of gauging, our future offseason discussion of the top quarterback rankings, obviously, which we're doing. Yeah. So I'm gonna say pump the brakes only because the guys that we already named that were there, like you said, 10 is a rotating. I got to see how the season ends for Drake May. Listen, it's not just him that's having a phenomenal year. Kayshon Boutte is having one of the best seasons of his career. He's using his tight ends really well.
Yep.
They're having excellent seasons. But it's got to be sustainable. You have to continue this run. And
that's fair.
The Patriots they don't have an easy schedule the rest of the way through. They have a lot of good pieces, but they don't have an easy schedule the rest of the way through. I also think too, what's the else isn't sustainable? the fact that Stephon Diggs has been targeted 49 times and has caught 42 passes. That's an incredible efficiency rate.
It could also just be Diggs is getting the resurgence that we were kind of waiting for him to get in Houston. Yeah. And this is maybe why, and maybe we got to be fair of, he's another year removed from the injury stuff with New England compared to his time in Houston. But is it not damning that CJ Stroud couldn't make this work this way with Diggs, but May can?
So, I mean, again, the stats are eye-popping, but there is going to be that come-down factor that you're going to have because, look, Drake May is going to throw a few more interceptions.
Oh, yeah.
15-3 is the ratio. He's going to have days where his passing is not there. Right now, he's completing 75% of his passes. That's, unfortunately, in this league, not sustainable. It's just not. I mean, the best ones can, but he's averaging 9 yards per pass. It's not sustainable. It's great. It's a really good story. But my thing is, how will he respond from the adversity? Yeah. Like, let's say, for argument's sake, the Patriots come out this week against the Falcons and lay an egg. Let's say that May has a terrible game. Falcons pick him off 3 times. How does he come back the next week against Tampa Bay against that defense? That's the true mark for me of a top 10 quarterback, is how you respond after having a rough game. And look, I mean, how did they've been on a 5-game winning streak since their last loss against Pittsburgh?
Yep.
So they've responded well on that one, and the game against the Dolphins was a good response to the loss to the Raiders to start the year. But now that you're in the teeth of the season, how do you respond after a bad game? That's what I really want to see. So I will say pump the brakes only because I need to see how the season ends, and I need to compare it against everybody else. I think right now, though, yes, top 10 quarterback, no question. But I need to see how it plays out at the end because, again, there's just so many intangibles left remaining.
Yeah, that's more than fair. Look, I had to sneak this in before Toyotathon because Jordan Love during Toyotathon is like a top 5 professional athlete to ever be seen. He's up there. He's up there with 90s Wayne Gretzky and freaking. It's insane to say the right.
Victor Wembanyama during the rodeo trip or Jordan Love during Toyotathon. I think I'm taking Jordan Love. It's tough.
It's tough. It's a close one right there to say the very least.
Yep.
All right. Rick, I'm going to continue on the young quarterback high on this one. This isn't as declarative of a statement as it is with the Drake May one, so I'm kind of hedging my bets here. But I do think this is a real possibility. Look, this man's team is the walking wounded. Lost who was supposed to be his best receiver. Lost his number 1 remaining offensive weapon. It's going to be on his shoulders to put on some respective performances this season. I think we might see a couple gunslinging performances here as well, some stats. I think Jackson Dart can still win the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. I don't think it's out of question yet for him to launch a second half of the season comeback for this award. Egbuka has started to kind of taper off after the hot start of the season. He's still doing pretty well. And I mean, I think with Mike Evans being gone, he has a chance in the next 2 weeks to firmly put it away. Obviously more than 2 weeks, but you know what I mean. Ted McMillan, I think, has been very underrated for this award. I think he deserves to be in the conversation, and Warren as well. I almost said Tucker, but no, it's Warren in Indy. He feels like a Tucker.
He does.
No, Warren has been great to start off as well. But I think if Dart starts to have a couple of these crazy performances that if he can put together a couple 300-plus yard passing games in the back half of the season with walking wounded weapons, I think people will start to make a little bit of noise. And you know how the New York media is. We know how the media can be swayed when it comes to these awards. So don't give up on Jackson Dart being the Offensive Rookie of the Year yet. I think he still has a chance to get the award.
I want to so badly go against that notion. The problem is, at least in my mind, that I can't really truly tell you who I would go with instead of him.
Which this is going to make things fun because probably in a week or two we're going to give our midseason awards.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I think it is a groundswell media campaign. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I do believe that there will be some love and consideration given to Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah.
Because he's had a great season. I think Tyler Warren, man, it would be so fun to see a tight end win this award.
It really would.
Warren's having a great year. I think the culture just a high-powered offense, but I don't think they'd sweep all the offensive awards.
Probably. I literally, the media will not give them that.
Unless they go 16-1, then yes, give them everything.
Probably. That'd be the only thing.
Yeah, exactly.
They go 15-2? No, they're going to lose one.
No. Jonathan Taylor MVP? Ha!
Yeah. I got something for that here coming up.
Oh, boy. The only person that can stop Jackson Dart from winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year is himself.
Yeah, that's true.
Or
his team.
Well, I mean, fair, but I'll go gas on this one. Yeah, the only person who can stop him from winning it is himself. If he gets hurt, then obviously that's it, because he plays a lot of this backyard style hero ball that I was so itchy about Cam Ward about. But he's a good kid. He's a good kid. He's a good player. He's in his moment, and yeah, like I said, I think the rest of the league is bereft of the talent on offense that you could suggest could win this award. Now, theoretically speaking, could if there was like a high-powered offensive lineman that was destroying everything right now, would he be the guy? I'd say this would be the year that if there was a good offensive lineman out there, that he might get some consideration. Right. It's tough because O-linemen don't get that kind of, love and play. But I think that if there was somebody that was out there, Will Campbell might be a guy.
Yep.
That you could say.
Drake May's guy.
But, again, it's really hard to talk about an offensive lineman in this award. It hasn't happened. But.
And it's just one of those tough things where it's like the media may never be at a spot where they'll ever consider it, because they're never going to go that deep into it. Mm-hmm. They just never will. Even the people that actually do try to do as much research as they can, they probably wouldn't be able to really parse too much. Like, why would an offensive lineman be in serious consideration? Like, right. maybe a couple stray votes here and there, maybe a third, maybe a second place. I don't know if we'll ever get an offensive lineman winning like one of these kinds of awards. It'd be cool. Probably not going to happen. Which, shout out to the O-lineman. All right, second to last one here for me, Rick. Kind of more of a straightforward one. We're keeping in the NFC. We're going more team specific wise here. Not too much in terms of like, I'm not going to, this is not about playoffs necessarily. It's not about teams winning a division. This is more just about placement. I think it really says a lot about two teams that we felt opposite ways about at the start of the season to where they are now. I believe the Panthers are going to finish ahead of the Falcons in the NFC South here at the end of the season. This is the final week that I'm going to give Atlanta any kind of stock or credence. I think they right now have a bit of an upset feel in the Patriots game where I think it makes sense to pick them. There's still Bijan Robinson. I think Kirk Cousins, he's going to magically have a random bounce back game like Joe Flacco has had every other game. It feels like it so far this season, going back to last year. I think the pieces are there where this could be kind of that last gasp for them. But if this is not, then just this is a Falcons team that has underperformed and disappointed this season. They are not challenging the Buccaneers for this division. A Buccaneers team that is they are the definition of the walking wounded more than San Francisco is arguably at that same level this season. And they're not even second in the division right now because that is the Carolina Panthers at this very moment. Carolina got destroyed by the Buffalo Bills. And yet they're still second in the division at 4-4. Falcons are below 500. This is the last chance saloon here for the Atlanta Falcons, because if they do not beat the Patriots this week, I do not see any reason to believe going forward that this is going to go well for them. And this is bad for two reasons. One, because going into the season, we thought that they could at least challenge the Bucs. Maybe some people had them as a wild card team. What's going to be worse if they miss the postseason? Remember, they traded this year's first round pick to pick one of the young defensive linemen that they have, right? They traded this year's first round pick back in the draft, if I'm not mistaken. So you have everything to play for right now if you're the Atlanta Falcons. You just don't. And the Panthers have no pressure. They have no expectations coming in. And we need to constantly revisit them every week, every 2 weeks, every 3-4 weeks, because Bryce Young is starting to kind of turn things around for himself. Ted McMillan is playing like a top-tier player. They just need to get them the ball in the end zone more. And the rushing attack has still been pretty good. Imagine if Chuba Hubbard was coming back healthy right now, like definitively healthy, and what him and Rico Dowdle can do. Carolina actually looks like they can be competitive in games. We haven't been able to say that for years. So, Panthers above the Falcons to end the NFC South this season is my prediction.
I hate this. I really truly do. I hate giving David Tepper any kind of credence, but I also hate giving you smug bastards any kind of credence as well. You and Justin have been on Team Carolina since 2021 at this rate.
Yeah, right. I don't think we went that far back.
Close enough. Yeah, see, it doesn't get any easier for Atlanta after this one because they have the game in Berlin, and then they got to come back and play Carolina. And then they got 2 cakewalks against the Saints and the Jets, but then it's Seattle, Tampa, at Arizona, which is not easy. And then you host the Rams before the Saints.
Well, here's the thing about that Jets game and the Saints game. Atlanta isn't even allowed to call those cakewalks because they got dog walked by the Dolphins a couple weeks ago.
This is true. What I'm saying, like the Saints are starting a catchphrase at quarterback, and the Jets are, trying to figure out their life.
Right. Which is true, but it's like it's very telling. Like there's a certain the Falcons are in a tier of team where they could face a 1-win or winless team, and we can't even call it a cakewalk for them, which is insane to think about.
Carolina has Tampa twice to close out the year, and New Orleans twice. So they're still very much in their division, but outside of it, they've got arguably the 3 toughest games in the NFC West. They have to face San Fran, LA, and Seattle. So not easy for them either. What I will say is that based upon what I just gave you, if Tampa doesn't win this division by 6 games, there's something wrong with the Bucs. Fire Todd Bowles immediately. I should change my my headlines. Can I fire Todd Bowles, please? Yeah, begrudgingly, I'll go gas on this one. Like I just wish so much better for the Falcons, man, because but it's just like their general manager has made a lot of questionable decisions the past couple of years in drafting, and James Pierce, who's the guy they picked in the first round this year and trade for the first round next year, has not worked out at all. The only saving grace is that you traded that pick to the Rams, who are looking like a last 4 potential team in the playoffs this year. So there won't be. You traded away the 26th overall pick, and you traded away the 10th or the 4th pick. It's like it's going to be lateral levels of value there, I think. So, but yeah, put the car into first gear and let's just putter along and gas. I guess it's fine.
And let's go to the very last take here. This is a bit of a longer one. This is kind of a wordy one, but this is ultimately how I feel. I'm not going to make any bones about it. Jonathan Taylor should be the MVP of the first half of the season. He, as much as Daniel Dollar signs as I've upgraded him to has improved, and he's limiting his mistakes as much as Shane Steichen has done a phenomenal coaching job, which he has. And they have an offensive rookie of the year candidate. Quentin Nelson is once again proving to be one of the best offensive linemen in football. Defense is playing good, yada, yada, yada. Jonathan Taylor is the engine of this freaking offense. He is the reason why they are dominating. He is the reason they are so good. He has, 4 games in a row now with at least 3 touchdowns, I think is the stat, or is it 3 games in a row with 4? Either or is impressive. I think it's the 4 games in a row with 3. He's been amazing. He is on pace to surpass what he did in 2021, which will play a key role in what I'm about to speak here about. Or was it 2020? No, I think it was 2021. He's about to surpass what he did in 2021. He's going to surpass probably and have the greatest rushing season in Indianapolis Colts history here, what he's on pace for. He's going to have a rushing season that, in terms of touchdown production, is going to rival some of the great running backs that have ever played the game. That is what he's on pace for right now. And, of course, this take is assuming he's going to continue this production. Like, that's kind of when we're going forward, we need to assume a continuation of this level. So let's assume that Jonathan Taylor is going to continue to play at this level come season's end. Let's say he gets close to, he doesn't need to eclipse, but let's say he gets close to the total touchdown record. Let's say he gets close to the rushing touchdown record. Let's say he has a running back season for the ages that strictly puts him in, how are you not saying this is the most valuable player to a team? And this is why I say, if Jonathan Taylor does not win the MVP this season, then a skill position player will not win an MVP award for the rest of this decade. And here's why I'm saying this. In 2020, Derrick Henry had a 2,000-yard rushing season, led the Titans to a top-tier regular season, no MVP award. 2021, like I mentioned, Jonathan Taylor led the league in rushing by like 600 rushing yards. He was the league leader by a country mile, and they didn't give it to him. I believe that was also the same season where Cooper Kupp just literally the greatest season of his career and one of the best wide receiver seasons of all time, also didn't get any consideration. A year later, went to a quarterback, which is probably 2022 is the most fair season where it went to a quarterback so far. No skill position player really stood out. 2023 was the amazing season where McCaffrey had 2,000 total yards between rushing and receiving and over 20 touchdowns between rushing and receiving. Doesn't get a lick for the freaking MVP award. That was 2023, I just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then 2024, take your pick. Do you want to talk about Saquon Barkley's 2,000-yard rushing season? Do you want to talk about Derrick Henry's near 2,000-yard rushing season? Or do you want to talk about the Jamar Chase Triple Crown? We have seen some of the greatest, if you're an 80s or 90s old head, I'm not saying this to disrespect the players of the past. We are legitimately seeing some of the greatest offensive production seasons that this league has ever seen in this decade in terms of individual performances, and none of these guys are getting consideration for the MVP award. So if JT continues this production, if he ends up getting close to LaDainian Tomlinson's record or any kind of rushing record, and he does not get the MVP award this year, you cannot convince me they're ever going to give a skill position player this award for the rest of this decade. Because what does someone have to do to take the award from a quarterback? And we've had some down quarterback years the last 2 years, and they just gave it to quarterbacks. So I don't think this is a hot take to consider it. Maybe because I'm going 5 years in the future, it might be hot. But tell me, what more does someone have to do? Does a running back need to get 3,000 rushing yards? Does a wide receiver need to get 2,200 receiving yards and 50 touch? What has to be done?
What has to be done is what I've been stomping on for millennia at this point, because I've been saying it back when I was a young kid in the 1990s into now. You have to take the power out of the hands of the nincompoops of the Associated Press, who don't know a football from an egg at this point. It's really hard to say that there's not going to be a skill position player to win the award, because I think this is the year to do it. This is the year to give Jonathan Taylor both the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year award. And part of that has to do with a lack of quarterback play. Your usual standard guys are not having their usual standard seasons. Jackson's hurt. Burrow's hurt. Mahomes, people just know Mahomes from the State Farm commercial, so obviously that's why he's going to get MVP, obviously. But he hasn't had the greatest season. Jalen Hurts won the Super Bowl last year, but he's had a atrocious season for an NFL MVP candidate. Josh Allen's not impressive.
Yeah.
I think this is the year because I feel like they would rather give the award to Jonathan Taylor than to Daniel Jones or Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford. Because Jonathan Taylor is more of a household name than those guys are.
Mm.
And you're going to have people who unfortunately are like, Jonathan Taylor Thomas is having a great football season? Because they have no clue what's going on.
Right.
The only thing I think...
Well, just for my thing at the start is if JT does not get it. So this is assuming the worst case scenario of he's going to continue this pace and yet they still find a way to not give him the award. That's the key for my scenario here. Because like you said, if he does continue the season, you have to give him this award. There is no excuse that you can find to give it to someone else. But this is assuming that quote-unquote doomsday scenario. This ain't the end of the world here. But this is assuming what the little faith we have in the AP voters, they're just going to give it to a quarterback here. And I think, was it one of the guys I like sending in the chat is Benchwarmer Brand, I think is. And he had a funny thing where it's like Jonathan Taylor, because he pretends to be the characters. And it's like Jonathan Taylor is like constantly going. It's all the other quarterbacks in the league is like, but he's a quarterback. And it's like,
right.
That is so sad that he can make that joke. We can make this joke. We can have every spiel we've ever had on this show's history, which we could one day when this podcast eventually stops, we could make a supercut of just us going against voters. And this is the case. Like, this is genuinely what it is. It's that we have to assume this level of incompetence from the AP voters. That if a season like this that we think he's going to finish up and having, which is once again a all-time caliber season that's going to challenge some NFL records for running backs, can't get the MVP award. You know, it's like if you, I think this kind of equates to both of us, Rick, and people like of our age range. It's like, let's say you meet every single responsibility, you have every single qualification for a job, every single thing they list in the job description. You have the experience, you have the certifications, you have literally everything from A to Z from the responsibilities in your resume, and they don't even give you an interview. What do you have to do to get an interview?
It happens all the time.
Yeah, right. What do you have to do as a skill position player to get the MVP award?
Okay, so if we're going by that logic, then maybe Jonathan Taylor has to update his LinkedIn profile, start networking, maybe do a little brown nosing and ass kissing for the AP voters. Maybe take a few of them out to dinner, wine and dine them, sort of thing.
At this point,
I guess that's what you're referring to. Yeah, listen, I think I agree with you, but I'm going to give myself an out clause here with going all gas on this one. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't win the MVP this year, then yes, a skill position player won't win the MVP in the 2020s because they're going to change the award from MVP to MVQ. just to knock out all consternation and questions about it, because basically that's what the award is, right?
Yeah,
that's what it is now. So, I think if the case being that it's either not an MVP win or a very close MVP second, like let's say that he loses by 2 votes to a quarterback who let's say that he loses 2 votes to Daniel Jones, I'd be like, I'd be mad. But it's better than me saying he lost by 160 points to Patrick Mahomes, who threw 19 interceptions this season.
The only reason why I would still be like, just an example, is like we've seen Daniel Jones throughout his career. Like, look, he's been great this season, but we know what he looks like when he doesn't have Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah,
we just know.
I agree with you immensely.
It's just. We have to prepare ourselves for the voters to screw up because they're going to screw up.
I'm just saying that. But
I get what you're saying.
If he loses the MVP in a close race to a respectable option, I won't be as mad as if he doesn't even get a first place vote or doesn't even sniff the top 3 in the balloting. If he like, I don't know what the rushing triple crown is. That's what I'm assuming it's. Carries, yards, and touchdowns, or something like that.
I mean, I feel like a lot of guys have probably gotten that. I don't think it's as like elusive as the receiver triple crown.
But if it's yards and touchdowns with records attached to them, how do you not?
Or at least in the conversation, like let's be real, if he falls 1 yard short of LaDainian Tomlinson or 1 touchdown short of LaDainian Tomlinson's record, are we really going to ding him on that? Like, come on.
Yes, because if the AP voters are like baseball writers voters. Fred McGriff was 6 home runs shy of 500, which is an automatic Hall of Fame bid, and they still didn't vote him in.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
people are fickle, man.
Dude, you know how I feel. I don't have hope in AP voters. I don't have hope in referees like half the time. Like,
as my wife's calendar says, pat yourself on the damn back.
I tried to. So that was this week's edition of All Gas, No Breaks by myself, and that's going to perfectly lead into. We had to temporarily put the Flames on hold because, I mean, guys, let's be real. We know where the Flames originated from on this one. We probably need to get a new. We probably need to get a new Flames background here relatively soon, going forward for All Gas, No Breaks. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is the return, of course, of this year's edition of the Head Coach Hot Seat O-Meter. A precisely curated list of head coaches has been taken throughout the league. We have a list of, I think it's 10 head coaches, Rick, who are, from our point of view, on the hot seat, and we're going to give them a rating of 1 to 5, 1 being cool as a cucumber, it's being overblown, it's a very chill position, to 5, oh God, it's an inferno, I'm in a Formula One car in Singapore, and it's like 5 degrees hotter than it was expected to be, which is not fun, to say the very least. They're losing pounds of weight from sweat dripping. Kind of hot seat is the kind of hot seat we're at here. So let's get things going. Let's temporarily take this down. And the first head coach that we will have here of the list, we're going to start on the AFC side of things. The first head coach that we have here, and I think this is going to be one of the, I don't want to say few slam dunks, but I think it's going to be one of the definitive ones that we have on our list, Rick, here, is everyone's favorite head coach, Mike McDaniel. Oh, the promise that there once was for him and the Dolphins. You know, some people in 2024 had so much faith in Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins that they thought that they were going to not only win their division, but challenge for one of the top spots in the AFC. Those people no, we're not pointing fingers here. No, we're not doing any of that. But ultimately, this is a guy who he and the Dolphins, they make the postseason each of the first 2 years, 8-9 last season, and now an abysmal 2-6 start. Tua's career looks like it's completely fallen off the rails. Tyreek Hill is hurt right now, and even things weren't going swimmingly for him going back to last season and this year. Jalen Waddle has fallen off the face of the earth. Devon Achane is the one respectable offensive weapon they have left, and they're probably going to end up like barely using him now going forward. Now that we've said it, and the defense, which has always kind of been a here it's okay kind of thing with the Dolphins, just like so. Rick, I'll throw this one to you first, but I don't see any way where we both don't have high grades on this one. Mike McDaniel, he's not home for Miami.
No, he's not. And I'll tell you one way that we'll know for sure if he's on his way out. If the Dolphins lose, they're not off this week, right? I think they're playing this week, right?
I believe so.
If they lose this game and they trade away Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, all full steam ahead on getting McDaniel out of here because they're
the Dolphins literally play tomorrow. the Thursday night game.
Well, there you go. Look, personal opinions aside, because I've got a bevy of them on that nerdy Silicon Valley wonk that he is, because God. He just looks like the type of person that still is operating a Radio Shack in Tuscaloosa, Alabama for some reason. They need a new voice. They absolutely need a new voice. They need a new voice, a new quarterback, possibly a new wide receiver one. They need a lot of different things. There's really, to me, there's no argument to keep him around. So this is a 5 for me. This is an easy 5. Because it just, you got to give me more than Dolphins make the playoffs. Because it's not just that. It's Dolphins need to win the division, which they haven't done in 25 years. Dolphins need to win a playoff game, which they haven't done in longer than 25 years. And he's not the coach to do it. He's not. For me, I believe that on Black Monday, his will be the first name that we hear getting fired. So this is an easy 5 for me, no question.
Yeah, truthfully, it could even be quicker. And I'm with you. It's a 5. It's not even up for discussion. He's going to be fired. It's just a matter of when, not if, at this point.
Correct.
And if it somehow is an if, then there are a lot of issues, even deeper seated issues in Miami than we even think there are. We think there are already plenty.
I mean, listen. Here's the prime thing. Maybe he was right that if Brian Flores gets fired after an 8-9 season, but Mike McDaniel somehow survives a 3-14 year, maybe Brian Flores had a point after all.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Maybe he was a lot more right than a lot of people wanted to give him credit for back then. Eh? All right, next head coach here, and I will cede the floor to you to weave the tale of this one, Rick. Aaron Glenn, first year head coach for the New York Jets. Got his first win. got the first win as a Jet. So there's that. I think we might be. It won't surprise me if we might slightly disagree here. I think we both have probably a relatively close range here for his score. I'll cede you for more analysis here and your grade.
Yes, he got his first win, but it was a classic Aaron Glenn coaching performance where the defense just barely held on and stunk the entire way through. and let Joe Flacco basically run all over them in his hover round. It was ridiculous. But the more I think about it, the more I think that Aaron Glenn's going to get the second season. I do. Because Woody Johnson's one of the most inept owners in all of football. And it's just, he flies under the radar constantly, but it's just so bothersome to me as a Jets fan that you're going to have a terrible season and you're going to say, no, he's good. We're going to hang on to him. But then again, Rich Kotite got a second season. His second year was his 1-15 season, but he got a second season. Adam Gase got a second season, which, is awful in of itself. Walt Michaels, even though he was the winningest coach in Jets history, he got more seasons, even though he was terrible in some years, because it's just how the Jets are. The Jets are not a snap decision one-and-done team. So even though Aaron Glenn, I think, through 8 games deserves to be fired, it's a 2 for me. I think the media pressure is going to be enough where they're going to make a lot of noise, and they're going to have to find a way to mitigate that and say, no, he's our guy. He's going to be there. We saw some improvement. I don't know where you'd see improvement, but we saw some improvement somewhere. Austin McNamara is the star of this team, basically, which is saying something. Go Punters. But, yeah, I think Aaron Glenn sticks around. I had a little higher going into the show tonight. The more I thought about it, the more resigned I think I am to the fate that he's sticking around for one more year as a head coach. So 2 for me.
He's a 3 for me because the 3 is mainly from the fact that they really did start winless and they were this close to even going 0-8 and being like, oh boy, okay, we're in dangerous territory now. But, I think the thing is I'll try to put a positive spin on it. He is a first-year head coach. Like you said, I don't think the Jets, even as rash as they can be, are going to be the type to fire a guy like him after just 1 year, a guy who had a lot of repute coming into the job and taking it, a guy who I think, like Robert Saleh, definitively lost the locker room. I think we could argue he somehow probably lost that locker room multiple times throughout his tenure. But I don't think those guys are lost on Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn still has a lot of the attention of the guys in that room. I think there's a lot of belief. I think certain players on that team are resigned to how tough the season is. But I think if they believe that their head coach actually has their back, and I think Aaron Glenn does, I think it's different. There's a difference between being like what Mike McDaniel was described as a player coach and Aaron Glenn being described as a player coach, where McDaniel has the personality and maybe he might be a little bit more lax on the guys on certain days and he's just personable to them, to where Aaron Glenn, he's been through these trenches. He's, he understands what it's like to go to war on an NFL field, and he's been through the trenches in the postseason now as a coordinator on deep teams. He's seen teams win, and he's seen he's seen teams start really low down and come back up. And I think there is that little bit of belief that around the organization that they probably do have in him. And I think that's going to be enough to help him have, it's sad to say, a stay of execution for him after just year 1, but it kind of feels like what it is at the moment. So I think it's a 3 right now. It's only a 3 because of the really like poor start, and like kind of like how Justin described it like a week or 2 ago. Like they've found a way to lose in almost every way you could already lose, and they're barely halfway through his first season. So there's that.
I'll tell you one thing, though. If Aaron Glenn does survive and move on, he'll have a new OC next year because Tanner Engstrand's not the guy.
Yeah.
That offense does not look good with him running it.
Yeah. And as we've always talked about, coaches do end up getting a bullet in the chamber when it comes to, their coordinators, right? This is a guy that's had a lot of bullets somehow, and Rick, he may just have one more in him. Zach Taylor. This goes back to when we were working together, as we've shared in Lazy Rivers past, both between you and I and me and Justin, when we were working in the same college athletics facility, and I was writing articles that were randomly being viewed online. They're probably still somewhere out there to this day. Not my best work, really. It's decent, but not the greatest. I feel like I was hamstrung by the people I had to fucking write for. But Zach Taylor has been a consistent name that has been brought up for us in conversation for several years now. And this is part of the reason. Rick, it's 3-4 right now, and he's going to get a lot of people that are being like, but he doesn't have Burrow. And that's literally what's going to end up saving him. I think there are a lot of people in the know that will tell you that Zach Taylor should be very grateful for the fact that he has had Joe Burrow. And this cavalcade of weapons between T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, between the few defensive talents that they've actually had come through in Cincy when they were actually able to be respectable defensively. But if you pointed out the owner for the last one, I got to point out the owner here. We know Mike Brown. He's not going to fire a guy. He's not going to fire a guy that he's paying a relatively good rate for having to potentially pay the. First off, he'd have to fire the guy and then pay him for the rest of the season, maybe a year or two after. So he has to pay a guy for not working for his team anymore, and then he's going to have to maybe some sort of temporary bump this season to whoever the interim head coach will be, and then he'll have to pay more money for a replacement for next season. I don't think Mike Brown's doing that in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't want to pay Trey Hendrickson. He probably had to grit his freaking teeth to pay Burrow and Chase and Higgins. Why am I forgetting the tight end's name? Former Dolphins tight end. Gesicki. Yes. Which I feel like Gesicki's kind of like, is he hurt or is he just not doing it?
He's hurt. He's on IR.
Okay. I was like, he did get hurt, right? Or am I just imagining things? But yeah, I think Zach. Look, this is a high grade because I think we know that this dude realistically would not be long, and at some point the excuses are going to run out for him. But unfortunately, he gets a little bit lucky with the Joe Burrow injury. I have him as a 4 because I think he gets the little thing of Burrow was out. We really don't know what the season could have been, and the owner is just not going to fire him right now. So that's why I have it. But I have it as a 4. It literally could be a 5 any other day. Or if they had this record with Burrow being healthy, it would be a 5 easily.
The only reason why he survived after 2 seasons is because of Burrow. And in year 3, they went to the Super Bowl. In his first 2 seasons in Cincinnati, he was 6-25-1. That's a record that gets you fired from a Division III head coaching job in field hockey, let alone the NFL. Somehow Mike Brown has decided to hang on to him. They also held on to Marvin Lewis a little too long. Don't forget about that. 5. Look, I firmly believe that, yes, Burrow aside, I think Mike Brown can take a look at the staff now and say, oh, damn, I kept the wrong coach. Because even though Brian Callahan was an awful head coach in Tennessee, he was a good offensive coordinator when he had Burrow and Chase and Higgins in Cincinnati. And the snap decision that they made to fire Lou Anarumo after one bad season has truly hurt this team. And it's kind of showed you where they think their allegiances and priorities lie, and it's not in the right spot. And I feel bad for Al Golden because he's actually a pretty good defensive coordinator and a good head coach, but this is not really a good spot for him. I believe that Golden will return to the college ranks next year by his own volition. I think the Zach Taylor experiment's done, man. I think if you're Cincinnati, you got to bring on somebody who's got a little bit more name recognition, a little bit more clout, a little bit more veteran leadership, because this guy just doesn't have it. And you know what? It's funny that those 2 seasons where they went to 2 AFC title games and 1 Super Bowl pretty much earned him a grace period, but then 9-8, and now with 3-4, it's a sour taste in the mouth for me. So I think he's a 5. I do. I won't be surprised if he's fired this year, but I will be kind of like, I think I saw it coming, but I wasn't really sure what was going to happen.
Right, yeah, and I don't blame you in any way. I'm just lack of faith, some would say, to say the very least.
Well, George Michael said you got to have faith, so.
Ain't that the truth? All right. Rick, this one is a guy who has been taken to task here on the program on a number of occasions, for good reason, by the way. We talk about Zach Taylor and what the last couple seasons have been with not living up to expectations, and you have Joe Burrow, you should be winning more. Well, here's a guy that has a guy who we could say, like, let's just be outright. We called this guy a Hall of Famer weeks back without a Super Bowl. This is the kind of quarterback you can and should win a Super Bowl with, but you have somehow been able to not do that. It's very easily, and I know people are going to be shocked, but don't be. If you listen to the show long enough, then you're in the know. John Harbaugh is the next coach on the head coach hot seat meter.
Yeah,
I'll let you tell the story on this one of why he very much is and should be here, and what the case is in your eyes for him.
Well, remember too that we did speak about him last year in this same segment, and I'm going to echo some of the things that I've said going into this. The Ravens have been around for about 30 years now, and they've only had 3 head coaches in their entire run. Ted Archibald was their head coach for the first couple of seasons when they were middling. Brian Billick took over after that and won them their first Super Bowl in 2000, so the Jamal Lewis-led run. And then after a few more years of him being really good, they went to John Harbaugh, and the rest is history. He's been there for 16, 17 years. He has a Super Bowl win to his record. But how long ago was that? 14 years now at this point? Yeah, it's long gone. And not even a Super Bowl appearance since, right? They haven't even gotten back. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the Ravens have kind of coasted on this idea of they got there, they won their Super Bowls, and then that's really it. You know, it is like Mike Tomlin, friend of the show, Mike Tomlin in a way, but like the difference between the two is that Tomlin's never had a losing season. Harbaugh's had them, and it's mostly been self-inflicted. Yes, you could say injuries too, but how many fourth quarter games was he blown in his Baltimore Ravens tenure?
Too many to count. We always see the stat when it happens. I think since 2000, or at least maybe since when he first became a coach, his teams have blown the most fourth quarter leads.
Yeah. And again,
even consider games where they were favored. And by the way, you just mentioned the thing of them not being back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It took them, I think, 11 seasons to even make it back to the AFC Championship game.
Right. And there was that. They were the 1 seed a couple of years ago, right?
They
hosted the AFC title game that year.
Seed. They made it there. They were favored.
And how did they come out?
And they lost.
It was an awful game too. Like there was no game plan at all, basically. The only thing that will save him for me is that through the adversity of the season, if they somehow make the playoffs and somehow win a game in the playoffs, or maybe they end up hosting a couple games in the playoffs, the adversity from this season will probably save him. I don't like it, but I think the adversity would save him. I think he's got enough name recognition and clout to really stay power. It's a 3 for me because he really should be higher, but I believe there's going to be some wins that turn in his favor. And so with that in mind, to me, it's middle of the road. Like, again, it's a guy who should be higher, but probably won't be because he'll find some way to sneak out of it with his head on right and an AFC North crown again, because let's be honest here, that's just the way this is going to go for them.
Yeah. I'm not taking that into account for me. It's a 5. I've lambasted John Harbaugh a number of times on this program, and I think for good reason. I think, like, I am one who I'm more than willing to go after a coach, even if they've had the success, especially if that success when you won. I was in high school when they won that Super Bowl. A lot of things have happened since then. A lot of things. Some things very dark that I'm not going to get into, but a lot of things have happened since then. And look, man, I'm not going to sugarcoat it here. This guy has, even for the seasons, it's underperforming. You have a Lamar Jackson. You have a bona fide, one of the most talented quarterbacks that has come across the game. He is a guy who, at the peak of his powers, has been so fast on the field, he makes other all-pro runners look slow. This is one of the greatest quarterbacks you've ever had. You have consistently had one of the best defenses in the NFL for several seasons now. Roquan Smith, Kyle Hamilton, Marlon Humphrey. You're improving. You have had good skill position players. Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. Even I got to give respect, even though he messed up the catch last season. Andrews has been one of the better tight ends throughout the league in the last couple of years. This is not a talent issue. You cannot give him the excuse of that. You do not get to be, from a general manager and head coach perspective, and this is the way it breaks. You don't get to play but we ran into the Chiefs and the Mahomes excuse for your career. We can say that about Lamar and Josh at the end, ultimately, because we can look at the games and be like, no, they performed. They were doing what they could. Can't say the same for you. You are the guy who has blown multiple double-digit leads, your team. You are the guy who consistently has gone for 2-point conversions in the most unnecessary spots possible, and then it forced your team to have to do them again later in the game when it was even more tight and critical. You are the same guy who, despite the fact that Lamar Jackson was absolutely cooking in the AFC Championship game with running the ball, there was only one in the second half of the AFC Championship game that you were leading at one point 2 years ago. You took the ball out of his hands. There was only one design run play for Lamar Jackson in the second half of that game. This is the same guy who last year took the ball out of Derrick Henry's hands in the postseason. I have not and will not ever see another head coach that consistently does not let his best players decide the game that is allowed to have this long of a tenure. And it is unacceptable. It is genuinely unacceptable. So I get what you're saying. In the likelihood that they do come back and they do win the division and they do make the postseason, I agree with you. This will very much become a 2 or a 3. But I am very much in the I've had all I stands and I can't stand no more with this guy. And if they miss the postseason this year, get out. Get out. I don't care with the injuries. I don't care with any of this. Get out. Because there is no excuse for you anymore. The excuses have been run out. If you won a Super Bowl 2-3 years ago, okay, you have a little bit more of a leg to stand on. It's been 14 years, going on 15. Children that were 7 years old have graduated or are about to graduate college. Some of them are probably even getting a second degree. 15 years? Two generations have been named since you last won a Super Bowl?
Yeah. Ugh. I hate our society.
I don't know. Like, John Harbaugh is just one of those guys where it's like genuinely like I don't fall for the pristine of like, oh, you won a Super Bowl, this, that, and the third. Like, no. You look, I don't care what your resume is. You can get lambasted on this podcast. This is what the Flames are for in the background. Speaking of which, Rick. I kind of feel bad for this next guy because I feel like he's been mentioned every single time we've had the hot seat meter. Now, granted, this is really only the third time we're doing it, but I'm fairly certain in the first season of the show's history, we also talked about this guy as well and what if his job was or was not on the line in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski. This is we want to talk about a guy who the last two guys we've talked about of getting the break of injuries and getting the break of the success that he's had for the team. This guy, it's funny to say he can say it for both because he's led the Browns to the postseason 2 times. He's won the Coach of the Year award 2 times as well. Ironically, both times was the seasons they made it into the playoffs. And yet, once again, he's going to consistently be here because, Def Taxes and Kevin Stefanski on the head coach hot seat meter. It's kind of a long one for a shirt. Maybe we'll make it like a wristband or something.
Yeah.
Maybe a towel.
Maybe. Oh, yeah. Towels are good. Yeah.
But Kevin Stefanski is going to be on here probably till the end of time, knowing us. They just... See, it's not his fault that they traded for Deshaun Watson. It's not.
No.
That being said, I mean... It feels unfair to give him a high grade, but he is the definition of one of these guys that at some point it's like, how do you have your job? Like, we were asking this question the 2 years between the playoff appearances. And now, like, are we going to do this again? Because now it's like 2023, they made it, 2024, they missed 2025, they're going to miss, 2026 now? We're going to have to end up asking, like, is his job on the line again? Like, Rick, he keeps surviving. He keeps surviving. Is he going to do it again?
No, not this year. Listen, I believe that the precursor to all of this was the way that they handled the draft with taking 2 quarterbacks in the same draft class, including Shedeur Sanders. It just to me, it just stinks of, just not really a good job on their end of being able to field a team with enough talent and less distractions to make it warrant anything. I mean, they also got rid of Joe Flacco to let Dylan Gabriel start. And look, Gabriel's been fine. He's been serviceable. But Flacco's been a revelation in Cincinnati. I think that even shows you more so the problems that you have there. So they have a couple of good young pieces. Judkins, like I mentioned earlier, is good. Harold Fannin can be a decent tight end. Obviously, Myles Garrett is their core on defense, but you know, I don't want to go 5 for Stefanski because you're right to a point where like, how have you survived every single season basically? But a 4.5, a 4.5 to me sounds fair because again, how have you survived? You shouldn't survive this year, but if you do, I won't totally be surprised.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I have a 4. I think it's a case of there are clearly parts of this team that like it's not his fault, but at some point it's just like the way you lose kind of matters. And it's like they have had a couple losses where they were like kind of like, threatening to be in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just like this one, like this past game against the Patriots, you get 5 sacks, but you can't do anything really. I guess he is just getting the stay of execution because it is the 2 rookie quarterbacks, late round rookie quarterbacks as well, not even a first round pick. And it's like waiting for Deshaun Watson and hoping that they can make that work. And here's the thing. I don't think the failure of the Deshaun Watson experiment, I don't think that's his fault. I just think Deshaun Watson genuinely, look, I'm not using this as a excuse for him because like I don't care what I say. He committed terrible atrocities. Let's just keep it a buck. We've never been shy on this podcast mentioning that. Like we despise this man. He's a terrible human being. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care in the comments. If you get mad about that, go kick rocks. Terrible human being, scumbag. But his time away from the league, from that, like clearly affected him. And I don't think any of the great offensive minds in the league today could have fixed him. I genuinely don't. Like it went from this dude, how I was mentioning earlier, like the start of the decade.
Mm-hmm.
I think he led the league in passing yards in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that same guy.
It's not.
It's just not. And look, Kevin Stefanski is not going to be able to fix this. And this is not a discredit to him as a coach. It's just a simple fact. But he's going to get the stay of execution. They're going to give everything one last try in 2026. I think when we bring his name up here next year, Rick, I think next year will finally be able to be the time that we can give it a 5 if he does not get fired in the first 8 or 9 games of next season by that point. So we'll see. All right, final name on the AFC side here. Another first-year head coach, but he is far from being a rookie head coach, to say the very least. The old man. It's an old man's game. Or is it? Pete Carroll. Not going to lie, part of my rating has to do with the fact that this dude actually thought Chip Kelly could run an NFL offense, which, come on, we've seen ample evidence that he can't. So that's my big detractor of Pete Carroll. But let's go in a little bit of detail, Rick. What has led to the failure of the early returns of his first year with the Vegas Raiders?
Well, at the risk of keeping my job here in the podcasting world, it has not been the quarterback, even though this will tell you that the quarterback hasn't been playing with Ring of Honor tendencies in some games. But look, it's a young roster. It's a very young roster. It's not a great roster because you have some guys who are playing out of position. For example, JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson's not really a guard. He should be your center. I understand why he's not, but he should be your center. You drafted a 3rd-round left tackle out of William & Mary and Charles Grant, so your line's not up to stuff for your all-star running back in Ashton Genty. Brock Bowers has been kind of hurt here and there. And the defense isn't great. I mean, they could have been, but no, they're fine. So, to me, this one's a little bit tougher to grade out because, yeah, Pete Carroll's made a lot of mistakes here. But I also wonder how many of those are incumbent on him or incumbent on Mark Davis, P.F. Chang's number one customer of all time. I'll be honest with you. When Antonio Pierce had this job last year, and then he ended up not being the guy anymore, and they let him go, I thought the logical move was to go Patrick Graham. I thought he would have been a much better head coach. Obviously, they went with the big splashy hire because it is Vegas, and they wanted to do something splashy, so they did what they needed to do. Chip Kelly, he's not great. I am going with a 1 on this one because Pete Carroll deserves to go out on his own. The way that it ended in Seattle was really disgusting, and the Seahawks probably should be ashamed of themselves for it. I think Mark Davis, no matter how bad it gets, will let Carroll walk on his own terms. He'll let him walk out of the coaching game on his own because I think he has earned that right. I don't know if it's this year. It might be, depending on how bad the season is. It might be next year. Keep in mind, Pete Carroll is 74 years old, so, you know. But it's interesting that we're talking about a guy who's in a division of, like, the who's who in the coaching world, right? Because you have Andy Reid for Kansas City, Sean Payton in Denver, Jim Harbaugh in LA with the Chargers, and then Pete Carroll. It's like, there's a lot of good coaches in that division. And Carroll's a good coach. I think this year he just settled with a bad roster, and in the adjustment period, it's going to be a little tougher for some of the guys. So, one for me. I'm not threatened by this one at all, for sure.
I have a 2, which is strictly that because of Chip Kelly. Like he makes the hire. Got to give him a little bit of a critique on that one. But no, like I agree with you. I think part of my 2 is also like kind of a bold assumption that Davis will end up actually giving him the graceful exit because it's kind of in the Davis family name to not necessarily do that at times. It's not always the smoothest in relationship with players and coaches, but no, I think with Pete Carroll, it is one of those things where it's like I think some of the decisions that were made, predominantly like the Geno Smith thing, he had to have definitely had a heavy influence in that. And look, I mean, you're going to go with your guys no matter what. Like people are going to trust the people that they've been to battle with. But I think even for me, who Seahawks Ring of Honor candidate is Geno Smith, but not so much Raiders to say the least. And I think we were slowly starting to see some of these mistakes and regressions last season, and I think this is one of those cases where a guy just what have I said is a saying on the show? You trust the devil you know more than the devil you don't. And Pete Carroll tried to trust a couple devils he knows. Hasn't worked his way. But I am with you. I think ultimately he will get more of a graceful bow out, to say the very least. I also think, and this just needs to be said because I feel like whenever this doesn't really pop up as often as I think it probably does. But like we've brought this up before, just the fact that when it comes to the Raiders, like this is just strictly speaking, like it has been for years, the most cash poor team in the league, just in terms of like who the owner is. Like he is not a billionaire compared to some of the other owners around the league. And of course, we know the Packers are it's a different situation. Literally, the entire city of Green Bay has ownership at this point. But like, I don't think Davis wants to fire Pete Carroll on a whim because it'll also involve paying him out. Which, well, granted, NFL head coaches don't get the kind of buyouts that the college head coaches do. Still would pay a pretty penny. I think, like you said, I think it's going to be if things still aren't going well midway through next season, it's going to be probably talks behind the scenes of like, look, Pete, this just hasn't worked. I appreciate you. How can we do this amicably? I want to let you leave on your terms, but I also got to like do it for myself. I think Davis will probably be smart enough to realize like, okay, let's do this amicably. Yeah, because look, they're going to get bad PR if they fire Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's everyone's favorite grandpa. So there's that. So, that wraps up the AFC head coaches, Rick. So I'm done with the AFC side of things. Relatively, looking at it, at least on my end, only, two relatively forgiving scores in the 2 and the 3, and the rest, I mean, were, I think, relatively deserved 4 and 5s. I think we're accurate there. I'm very interested to see what our ratings will be on the 4 NFC head coaches, to say the very least. So let's not waste any time. Let's start with your man, Rick, your favorite friend.
Matt LaFleur?
Brian Shaw. Well, your second favorite friend, technically.
Okay.
But your favorite who will be in the discussion, Brian Schottenheimer. I'm going to throw this one to you because I know you are passionate about Brian Schottenheimer, to say the very least. I'm just going to say my take really quick, and then you can cook for the rest of it before we get to the next head coach. Look, he's Jerry Jones' puppet. He was hired to be Jerry Jones' puppet. It's kind of it. He's been with the Cowboys for a couple of years. This is probably a case if Kellen Moore had still been there, if Dan Quinn had stuck around, I think maybe one of them would have ended up being the head coach. Both of them will be left for greener pastures, or greener, and he was probably like the next guy that Jerry Jones wanted to put because he was never going to bring back McCarthy. I think it's tough, but I just don't think, barring if they lose, like unless they lose 10 straight games, I think his job is relatively safe. But it's probably clear that there are things that they need to do way better defensively being part of it. So I have a 3 for his rating because I think Jerry Jones, he's Jerry Jones' puppet. Jerry Jones is going to take that into effect. He does need, it's going to be internal. He does need to be better. The team does need to perform better, but I think Jerry Jones is going to cut him some slack as well. So that's my take for it. Take the lead.
I do not like Brian Schottenheimer. I'm sure he's a great human being. I'm sure he's a nice husband and a father, but as a football coach, I wouldn't let him coach Lindsey Wilson in the NAIA, let alone the Dallas Cowboys. Good grief. I guess by that logic, it makes sense that he's the guy that Jerry Jones wanted to bring in. But that is a damning note on the owner itself. For Jerry Jones and for Dallas, I think it's not so much how many losses they have. It's how embarrassing are the losses that they have. Like, how big are the losses or how embarrassing are the losses? In both ways. Listen, they didn't look great against Denver this past Sunday. And, if they don't have 2 wins in the next 2 games against Arizona and Las Vegas, and then they enter that Philadelphia game 3-6-1, and then remember they have a short week to play Kansas City, and if they're 3-8-1, let's say, or 4-7-1 even going out of that Thanksgiving game, it's real hard to say that they're doing anything right with that. So, I just think Dallas is a weird organization as a whole, and I don't like this hire. I thought they could have used somebody a little more flashy, a little more with substance than Mr. Safe, Mr. Personality, Brian Schottenheimer himself. So, 4 for me. Maybe he sticks around another year because they feel pity on him, or maybe he has some real deep skeleton in Stephen Jones's closet we don't know about yet. But I think he needs to go. But I can see a pathway where he'll stick around depending on, what Jerry wants to do with everything. So
yeah, that's fair. No, I think if Jerry Jones was no longer running this team somehow, then I think we would both be at a 4 or 5 because it's definitely acceptable. But
absolutely.
We know who the shot caller is at the end of the day. Speaking of shot caller, well, this guy got a young signal caller this year. He's getting to work with him for the rest of the season, but will he get to work with him past this year? Rick, Brian Daboll, once again. Fall off.
Did you say shot caller or shock collar? Either one's acceptable in this case, anyway.
The shot caller is what I said. 9-7-1 his first year as a head coach. Won the Coach of the Year award. 6-11 the next year. 3-14 last year. Projected to be above the 3-14 we think for now. It's been tough. Brian Daboll is one of these hard ones to get a gauge on because here's the tough part. He's the general manager's guy. When the GM came in, this was the person he hired to be his first head coach. I've seen some people try to link the two together where if Daboll gets fired, Shane ends up being fired, but I don't think that's the case. General managers get at least one head coaching bullet. This is the bullet. But I'm almost wondering if maybe part of the mindset is, and this is kind of like led it for me, where if Joe Shane does not fire Daboll by the end of the season or just after the season, does he lose the faith of getting that free bullet? And you're tied to this guy. What if he gets fired? I'm going to have to fire you. And so I wonder if that has to play a role in his decision at some point. Because to be this loyal to the guy where it's been going downhill now since year 1, literally, it's not great. But what are your thoughts on the situation with Daboll?
Jackson Dart's success is going to tie heavily into how Brian Daboll's received. And I can see a pathway where he convinces the ownership to let him stick around because Dart was his guy. You saw how it worked. You saw the positives. So let me keep him. Let me hang him around. Keep Jameis as the backup as his mentor. Go from there. That being said, Giants fans don't like this guy. I think it's pretty clear that they want Tom Coughlin back, but they're not getting him because, the coaches since Coughlin have all been atrocious.
Yeah.
Put that way. Dable's no exception to the rule. So 4 for me. I think the fact that he got an extra year because the last 3 Giants coaches only got 2 seasons is telling. But I think that's also to do with Joe Shane.
Really, 2 years.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
4th season, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's to do with Joe Shane. And I believe that in this case, they're going to resign themselves to the fate of maybe another year. Will be better. But right now, it's not it. So, yeah, 4 for me is fine.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I also have him as a 4. And it's going to be interesting to see if he makes it past this cycle, to say the very least. This guy, it's tough for this guy to be on the list because I think all 3 of us were like relatively like fans of the hire. But it's just not going well, and now we need to ask serious questions here going into like in this 3rd season, and if he'll make it past the 3rd season. Raheem Morris.
No.
I know it's tough. We do like him. He's been a good coordinator multiple times on both the offensive and the defensive side of things. He has been, but the fact that you have this young, talented core of skill position players, a defense that it's so hard to gauge this defense because they've had to make a lot of additions to it the last couple of years, but they're not like off the top of my head, I don't think they've really been a bottom tier unit. Like they're a respectable defense. Well, maybe this year that's starting to change. Like I know it's not his fault with what they did with the quarterbacks with signing Cousins and then drafting Penix. But it's still just kind of one of those tough things to where it's like Michael Penix looked like he could have been the start of the future at the last game of last season. And that's been nothing so far this year. He's had 1 good game, I think. And now they have to start Kirk Cousins for a bit because of the injury. So, I don't know. It's very tough to gauge Raheem Morris on this one.
So tough. So tough to gauge it because there's a lot of things that are going against him, but a lot of things are also going for him in his favor that kind of cancel out and negate the negatives. Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier have been incredible for them. They just need to figure out their quarterback situation. I guess Penix is hurt, so Cousins is the guy. It hasn't really clicked, It hasn't clicked down there like you thought it would, which is a shame. But give me a 3 for this one, only because I feel like this one is probably your leader in cycle for next year's hot seat meter, but not this year's. Again, there's a lot of different variables in play for Atlanta that to me signal that they're trending in a good direction with some of their picks and some of their signings, and they just want to keep that going. So if you keep the status quo for 1 more year, you keep the status quo for 1 more year, and that's what I think they're going to do with Raheem Morris here. I think it's going to last until next year's hot seat meter. So give me a 3 on this one.
There we go. I'm also in agreement 3. I had a little bit higher at first, but as I was starting to think about it, this is the guy that Terry Fontenot hired after the whole Arthur Smith debacle. And Arthur Blank has been, he's one of the better owners in the league in terms of giving guys time. I think he's willing to maybe give them 1 more year, maybe hoping and assuming that Tampa Bay's fall off comes next season. But if we're having a similar conversation this time next year, I'm with you. I think he could be the leader of the clubhouse, which sucks to say, but ultimately is how it goes. All right, Rick, we've reached the end of the hot seat-o-meter. The last name is a guy who's sort of been around this conversation for the couple years. I don't know if we officially put him on it last season because I think we were relatively forgiving. I think they did show some promise last year. But after the first couple weeks of the season, the promise has relatively gone away. Look, the quarterback situation is just not great. The quarterback is not making strides anymore. The rookie wide receiver that they brought in has just been whatever. Some defensive performances, individuals are still great. Budda Baker's there. I'm forgetting his name, Josh Sweat, who they got in free agency, has actually been pretty well. I think he's almost at 10 sacks, actually, funny enough. But, Jonathan Gannon is going to be the last name on this list, and I think for relatively good reason. Look, he was on this list in his rookie season, I'm fairly certain by us. Kind of saved himself last year, but everything has taken a step back this season in terms of that. And they were 8-9 last year. I'm going to be shocked if they come near that 8-9 mark this year. It's going to take a tremendous second half of the season to turn things around for him. And I think I'm not saying I disagreed with what he did in lambasting DeMarcado on the sideline after that stupid dropping of the ball as he was going into the end zone. But I think mentally the organization is going to file that away as one of the reasons that they could use as an excuse to fire him. So there's that. So I have him as a relatively high grade. What did I have? I want to put this officially. I had him as a 4 going into this. You want to change? You could change my mind, and I could make it a 5, and we could finish it out here with a couple 5s. But I have it as a 4 because there's a very small chance he might be able to save it in the second half. But just where are the signs pointing towards a good second half of the season? You're muted, Father. You're pulling a Justin right now.
I am. Jeez, I am pulling a Justin. They're also 3 games back in the West, right? Seattle, LA, and San Fran are all on the 5-2s. Yeah, they're all in like the 5-2, 5-3 ratio, and Arizona is so far back, 2-5. Now, I think this one I'm going to give a conditional grade. Mm-hmm. It's a conditional grade for me.
Okay.
It is a 4. It will be a 5 if they move on from Kyler Murray as well. I think Gannon's tenure is tied to Kyler because I feel like the injuries that have beholden Murray have really dragged this team down. I mean, keep in mind, there was time a couple of years ago when we were doing the quarterback ranking, and me being the cheeky little ass that I am, said the number 32 was insert Arizona quarterback number 1, because Kyler was out for however long. So it was Clayton Tune or Colt McCoy. Good Lord, where's Colt McCoy been all these years, by the way?
I'd imagine retired at this point.
I hope so. Or somebody else. Or James Skelton. Was it? No, John Skelton. John Skelton.
Yeah, what a name.
Yeah, how about that poll? So I think for sure, I think that Gannon's tenure is tied to Kyler. If Kyler is not deemed to be the quarterback of the future in Arizona, then they're both going to be gone. But I can see a way that Kyler stays and Gannon gets one more year, because I also feel like the ownership group here in Arizona, they're going to look at Indianapolis as an inspiration that it can work. They can get a Philadelphia coordinator and have good success. They just have to put the right pieces in place. So, maybe they go out and get a couple more receivers, or they get a better running back room, or they get some key cogs on defense to help out, because they've got a good core if they build around Trey McBride, who's one of the best tight ends in the game. And again, I think Kyler, when he's on, he's a great quarterback. But when is he on? That's the question you have to ask. So it's, like I said, a conditional 4. The condition is if no Kyler, it's a 5.
I think that's more than fair. And that was this season's Hot Seat-O-Meter. There we go. I think relatively we were pretty fair on this one.
Yeah, I'd say so.
For it, I think we're consistently pretty fair on this. Like we give guys a little bit of leniency. Names do have to be mentioned because tough starts. Ultimately, that's how it goes. But yeah, I think that's how it went. So I think we did a bang up job right there. And speaking of a banged up job, we don't have to do this one live because this was pre-made, ladies and gentlemen. Let's skip straight to it. One of the highlights of the show on a weekly basis during the NFL season, and one of the last things that we're going to do here for the night, or maybe the last thing here, depending on it, the hashtag SAOC Pick Challenge, where Rick, Justin, and I go throughout the league in the picks that were made in a respective week, and we go on a 4-to-1 point scale, 4 being the most confident, 1 being the least confident that we are in picking games. We must all pick at least one upset pick. That upset pick must be used by, at minimum, our 2-point selection. And we basically just go in a serpentine order based off of the points leading into that respective week of the season. Of course, as we go week by week by week, to eventually lead to the hashtag SAOC Pick Challenge finale. That will be at the end of the season. Now, will this be the first ever SAOC Pick Challenge finale? That doesn't even need to happen, or at least not for the first place. We are going to list off the picks we made, because obviously Justin's not here. We're going to do picks live. We made picks beforehand, so we're going to list those off very quickly. The picks, by the way, that we make in terms of, I brought up upsets, I brought up stuff like that. We don't go based off like covering, who's going to cover the spread, stuff like that. We just go outright. But the picks from our friends at Mr. Voice
ESPN Bet.
And
we're the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, Justin probably said it in his sleep right now, because I imagine he's asleep.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, it's just telepathically he knows when we would have thrown to him.
He does. He knows on
it. But ultimately, that's how it's done. So, Podfather, I won't waste any time. You can list the picks that we made for the people. And Do I need to prepare the wheel here for the pod, gentlemen?
Yes, you do.
All right, you can list picks, and I will prepare the wheel.
So, to give the scores as well, it's a runaway currently at the moment. The real battle actually is between second and third, between the two of us, Drek over here, in this race. Justin, after a very good week last week, has crossed the 60 point plateau. He's at 61. Jurg, you and I are inching close to 50. You're at 49 and I'm at 48. The kids are having a rough time of it. Partially, I think, because the pod dog is actually, growing, but she has some molar issues, so she's not really feeling that great. So she's not really hitting on her picks. And partially because the pod dog doesn't really care anymore, which is, typical part for the course. Thanks, Sienna. I really appreciate your input here. The pod kids are at 36, and again, this week, thanks to the buys, they only have one pick this week, and they are going with the Monday night game of Arizona over Dallas in the upset. And so we'll see how the Wheel of Chaos decides to give them some point values there. In terms of our picks, my pick first for 4 points was the Rams over Tyler Shuck and the Saints. Again, it is Tyler Shuck starting this week for New Orleans. The Spencer Rattler experiment is over. When it was announced that Shuck was going to be the starter, the line went up to 14.5 points, where it currently sits now for the Rams. So, yeah, not looking that great. But, anything's possible, I suppose. At 3 points, I actually have tomorrow night's game, a.k.a. the Mike McDaniel Last Stand game, because it is Baltimore and Miami. I took the Ravens. I will say this. If somehow the Miami Dolphins win this game, then John Harbaugh's in a real heap of trouble.
Yeah, right.
Oh, boy. Oh, doctor. He'll be in a heap of trouble there. Baltimore is the favorite by 7.5 in that one, incidentally. At 2 points for my upset pick, I guess now it makes more sense as to why they would be an underdog in this one. If you don't know if Flacco's going to start or not, but I have the Bengals over the Bears. I think that Cincy, after the way that last week went out, they're probably going to, come out swinging here. And, it's always fun to watch Caleb Williams run for his life. So I'm taking that one. Again, the Bears, they did not have a good game against the Ravens last week. Should have beaten them, but, apparently Snoopaloop Hundley was just that much better. Ridiculous. And then my 1 pointer for the week, I took a flyer on the Giants over the Niners. I think that, Dexter Lawrence might have a field day getting to the quarterback room, getting the Mac Jones. Or if Brock Purdy somehow is back on one leg, him, who knows. But this is also a big game in terms of the trades, because I think you'll see a lot of these Giants players balling out for the possibility of being traded to a contender, and so that is where you'll see that. And again, Jackson Dart is really exciting, really fun to watch. So that'll probably be where he has his moment there. So that was my 1 pointer, Giants over the Niners. Jurg, you at 4 points went with, I believe it's the
Chargers over the Titans.
Well, I was gonna say second or third highest upset pick there, but our favorite pick. But sure, yes,
yeah.
you kind of you're jumping all over my steps here. Thank you for that. Yes, so the Chargers over the Titans. Again, Chargers are 5-3. Titans are 1-7. This is a no-brainer. Even though the game is at Nashville in Nissan, but who the heck knows what's going to happen there?
Jim Harbaugh got to answer some questions if this is close.
Exactly. 3 points, you went with an upset of Buffalo over Kansas City. Casey's getting 2.5 in this one. It is in Buffalo, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, weather forecast right now is not looking spectacular. It's only going to be 47 degrees in Buffalo.
Regular season merchants are the Bills against the Chiefs.
Absolutely, 100%.
I'm going based off that.
Yep. So that was your 3 point upset, but then you also went double upset for 2 points. You talked about a little bit in the Patriots discussion that we had. You're going Falcons over Pats.
This is where I'm going with. This game can do a lot of things. This is the Falcons' last chance this season to make a serious run at things. This could be the game that helps put the Panthers over them potentially later down the line. Mm-hmm. And this also could be a game that Drake May absolutely establishes himself as a serious quarterback. or this could be the game where the Falcons season has a little bit more life. A lot of things tie into this. Ironically, this episode was very tied into this game. I didn't really expect this when I made this selection yesterday, but here we are. Which, by the way, we did make these picks yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, so that's what the lines were based off of. So if anything has changed, I feel like we've said this before, but whenever we list something as an upset, it is made based on what we're picking in the moment. So if one of our picks that we made yesterday that was an upset suddenly didn't become one, there's no penalty there. It was an upset when we made the selection.
Correct. It's also a revenge game of sorts for a Falcon who was on the Patriots practice squad this year, Parker Romo.
There you go.
So there you go. And then at one point you went with Jacksonville, which I thought was a very interesting selection for you there against the Raiders. Jags going to Vegas, 2.5-point favorites there. We'll see. I mean, look, and one thing that I know about this game, it was that I avoided it for a reason because Trevor Lawrence I can't really trust, and Raiders, who knows?
Inconsistent on both ends. Just have to bank on the fact that a team that has shown some promise, they've had, I think they're just coming off their bye. They need to get back into the swing of things is what my logic was with picking that game. So
Justin went at 4 points with Detroit over Minnesota, with the specter of J.J. McCarthy starting in this game because Wentz is out. Again,
and they're never going to put Max Prosper.
But the people want Max Prosper, but they're not going to give it, which is why Kevin O'Connell should have been in our hot seat meter and should be fired. But whatever. If I can't get one NFC North coach, I'll try and get another one, I suppose. But yeah, the Lions are 8.5-point favorites here. I mean, I really can't foresee them losing this game, barring some unforeseen, craziness that happens there. I will say
Justin Jefferson 250-yard game incoming.
No, why not? No, not from McCarthy. If it was Brosmer, it would be absolutely. No, not McCarthy. The interesting one for me is the 3-point pick because when Justin took this one, I was kind of a little annoyed because I thought about coming back to me because I was going to take the upset here. But he has Green Bay 13.5-point favorites over Carolina because Green Bay at 5-1-1, it doesn't feel like it's a legitimate 5-1-1. There's no, the only real game that they had that was convincing win was week 1 because 9 points against the Commanders is so. The loss to the Browns, then the tie with the Cowboys. Their last 3 wins have been 9 points, 4 points, and 10 points, but they haven't really been super convincing, and they had to come back to beat Pittsburgh on Sunday night last week. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm expecting a little bit, maybe a possibility of looking ahead to the next week when they host Philadelphia on Monday night. Maybe Carolina can sneak away with this one, or at least keep it under the spread. I think that if the Panthers keep it under the spread, that will be as good enough as a win in my book for them, I believe. At 2, he went with an actual upset. And again, this one's kind of a funky one, but the Steelers are giving 3.5 points against the 7-1 7-1 Indianapolis Colts. Games in Pittsburgh at the stadium that everybody knows Heinz Field. The only thing that can stop Jonathan Taylor is that Heinz Field turf/grass because woof, it's awful.
Because they ain't gonna be that defense right now.
No, sir. And just for the sake of argument, I want to just check something here just to make sure. Pitt is at Stanford this week, so they won't be playing at that stadium, and yet it will still be trash. And then the 1-point game that Justin had was the Seahawks, who are, I believe, a 3.5-point favorite over the Commanders for the Sunday night game. Yes, the game that Justin will sleep through because, to be honest here, he needs to sleep.
Yeah, I think we kind of all do at this point.
I am not wrong about that. So this pick here is for, again, the kids. The kids are taking the Monday night game of Arizona in a mild upset over Dallas because, as I mentioned to you both in the chat, picking Dallas is not something that we do in this house. I mean, I do it because that's because I can get away with it because of how cute I am, but the kids know better.
Well, we also have, you did the digging, a fun fact about the Cowboys when it comes to games. And I don't know if you want to say it now or if you want to wait till next week's episode to state to the people what the fact is/was, because it does depend on their result.
Yeah, no, I'll give it now. I don't mind. Since 2019, the Cowboys have not won their first November game in the season. So what that means is that anytime the calendar is turned from October to November, whatever the Cowboys' first game is from 2020 through 2024, whether it be the first week of November or the second week if they have the bye, they haven't won it. They've always started November off with a slow start, which again, the irony behind that is this is a team that's you known for being a November team because they always play on Thanksgiving. They're always the nationally known team, and yet they can't seem to win that first game in November. So,
and it's funny because in seasons past they tend to give you a little bit of hope by having like a pretty good November, and then they just lose in December.
Exactly, but it doesn't start off that way. It's always like late in November that they turn it on at the end. So we'll see if Arizona can help continue this trend, and if they do, the kids will not only get a point, but they will get a multiplier. That's a pretty sizable multiplier there. 5x is not bad for them.
Look at that.
5x is not bad if it holds for them. Otherwise, we'll see. So, but yeah, there you go. So that's our picks for this week because Justin ain't here, so we make them by ourselves.
Yes, and we will ultimately see and get one step closer to will Justin be able to run away with this freaking thing, which he is currently doing.
Hope not.
On track right now for the most dominant SAOC margin in history for the Pick Challenge, and could be the only champion so far to clinch the title before going into the last week Pick Challenge. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be one of us needs to he needs to have a bad week, and one of us needs to have like a significant game week on him. I think if we're at, I know we're literally at week 9, but I think if we get past week 10 or week 11 and he still has a double-digit lead, I think our gooses might be cooked on the championship.
See, here's the problem with that theory though. Not last year, because last year it did come down to the end with the two of you. But 2 years ago, he had a pretty substantive lead going into week 17. And then week 17 and week 18, your boy over here made an incredible comeback, got the win, and in doing so, got this lovely chicken trophy right there. Look at that. It's glistening. It's shining. It hasn't been damaged by the kids yet. So,
give that a couple more years.
I need to add something to that collection, though. I'm thinking this year, if I win, I'm thinking of making it like the Merrill Lynch Bowl. Or something like that. Yeah, something fun just to kind of complete the collection there. So,
my trophy will hopefully be coming in the mail soon.
Which one did you get?
You'll see.
I like that.
Gotta leave some suspense for the people.
Yeah, why not?
It's nothing ostentatious, but something simple and I think will make sense. So,
ooh, ostentatious. That's a podium word for sure.
Yep. And speaking of podiums, Rick. Speaking of podiums, and not the F1 kind that I normally tend to go to.
Wait, we're finally releasing the merch with the podium on a shirt?
Oh, if only. Ladies and gentlemen, one podium to end the people's nights, Rick. Rant and Rick's Russian podium. Take us home, Podfather.
So, I'm getting back to some basics here with this podium. My number one is going to be something that is going to be, it's not like this happened in the news sort of thing, or this is the thing. It's actually something that I find to be quite stupid and quite annoying. So I'll get to it in a second, though. My honorable mention, of course, is the Dallas Cowboys, as a tradition, because, of course. And for now, actually, I'm going to make the third place spot on the podium a permanent third place spot on the podium for the United States Senate and House of Representatives in the American government, because people are about to lose their SNAP benefits on Saturday. Get the freaking government opened up. I don't care. And this is also an offshoot. Y'all need a civics lesson. Everyone who's saying, one party is keeping the House the Senate closed or the government shut down. Our archaic government needs 3/5 majority in the Senate, between 60 votes to 40, to pass any kind of bill. When there's 53 of one party and 47 of another party, if they vote on party lines, do you get 60? No. So all I'm saying, this is not political. I don't care what side you're on. Open the government and take a few civics lessons. Like, we need that in this day and age. So again, that's your permanent number 3 there. Number 2, I'm very annoyed. All I'm going to say is no yeet, because I'm very annoyed with Jimothy J. Uso over there, and how. By the way, and the teaser that was not a teaser of anything. It was just a boardroom scene of people playing poker and a very fake Brock Lesnar in there. Like, come on! Like, we all knew it was going to Vegas. No reason to tease it. Why are you doing that?
It's literally in the news that it's going to Vegas just for financial purposes, and you screwed New Orleans out of a Mania.
Stupid, and screwed Indy out of it too, actually, and screwed London out of it too. But we'll get to that in later years, I think. Number 1 for me. So I'm not normally a salad person by any stretch of the imagination. I'll have a Caesar salad every now and again. Like, it's good. Chicken Caesar salad, very good. The romaine lettuce there, like I said, fine. Not really a lot of lettuce person, but it's fine right there. But can I tell you the one thing that I don't understand why somebody thought this was a really good idea to come up with? Who in God's name invented the spring mix for salads? like it looks like I'm eating rabbit offshoots. Like, the mesclun greens that are there, like the freaking endives and the colors and the shapes and whatnot. It's like Dr. Seuss had a weird dream to become a culinary expert, and then all of a sudden we have mesclun greens. Like, and again, what is your identity? Are you a spring mix or are you mesclun? What the hell is mesclun? It's not even a proper word. It's messing with my idea of having food. Like, it's like, oh, it's endives, it's this, it's that. It's just like, nobody likes endives. What are you, freaking rabbits? Come on. Like if I, you know what? That's gonna go on the presidency ballot. If I become president, I am banning the spring mix from all restaurants, because why am I having the spring mix salad in December? It's not the spring. You lie into yourself. It's not the spring. Call it something different. Call it a waste of time is what you got to call it. God, the person that invented the spring mix, go jump off a spring mix. That's all I got to say to you. Good Lord. Hopefully your name's Aaron, like Aaron Boone, because, God, you're terrible at life.
And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Coaches have been tested and brought to, well, their feet and bums have been brought to the fire. And we gave our takes, we gave our thoughts. We'll see how many more coaches end up getting the axe this season and who will inevitably get fired, potentially on Black Monday. We talked about some trades that happened. Next week's trade deadline will be interesting. We'll definitely either give a little preview or react to it, depending on the next time we get to record. And 1 week closer, we'll get closer to the end of the season, closer to the playoff picture being clear. Well, we're still a ways away from that. Closer to the pick challenge, and closer in general to football games mattering even more and more and more, which is what we all want at the end of the day. So, from all of us to all of you, and in the next week or two, we'll be doing our midseason awards. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. We appreciate all of you who tune in for the fun, football, and chaos. And until next time, you beautiful, beautiful individuals, we love you all, and take care.